and get the meeting started. We'll just start by calling roll, if you will. So Gary's here. Gary Potts.
Here.
Dave Kraus.
Here.
Tom Berg. Not here. Danny Hammond.
Here.
AC Pinella. AC, I know, is coming in shortly. John Woods.
Here.
Kent Yamauchi. And Alex Soto is here for Andrew Bott or for Hannah?
You're here for Andrew Bott.
Andrew Bott today. And Kevin Clinton is here for Hannah. And Dr. Bell, as a resource rep, has just arrived. And Vice President Cable is here. Anthony and Marie are here from Fiscal Services. So the chair will entertain a motion regarding the June 28th, 2012 minutes.
So moved.
Moved by Dave.
Second.
Second by John. Discussion? Dave.
Yeah, I requested the VP's expense reports and how much they were and so forth. I don't see it on the minutes.
The minutes are generally written in such a way now as to be broad in the representation that the information is on the video. We could certainly put these in the minutes if you wanted to, but there's a lot of things that are not in the written minutes because now we are videotaping, so that just happens to be one item. But I suppose if you want that information in the minutes, we can certainly put them in the minutes.
I'll leave it to the rest of the members, what they want.
Out of curiosity, are you asking for the actual salaries to be put in there, or your request for them to be put in the minutes?
The expense accounts, yeah.
So you want the actual expenses?
Yeah.
I guess just on the record, considering the way minutes are done generally, I don't know if I feel completely if that's the appropriate place to put them. I think as part of a future agenda packet, that seems to accommodate those types of things a lot better than the minutes. So just for the record.
Okay. All right. For the sake of the group here, I would certainly be willing to put into the minutes that it was requested that the Vice President's expense amounts be provided to the group. I'd be happy to put that in, Dave, if that's what you want.
I think that anything that people ask for that should be on the agenda should be part of the minutes.
Okay.
Any other discussion probably doesn't need to be.
All right. Is everybody acceptable to that change to the minutes? Very good. So the minutes will reflect that. Are there any other comments? No. Okay, I guess I'll call the question. All those in favor of the accepting the minutes of the June 28th meeting as amended, please say aye.
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 Opposed? Abstentions?
I'll abstain since I wasn't here.
Okay. Alex abstains. Thank you. All right. That brings us to item number 3, public comment. Is there any person in the audience who would like to make a public comment? Our practice here is that as the discussion goes forward, within reason, we certainly allow people to participate. Okay. Seeing no public comment at this point, let's provide a budget update. I want to say that, I will say that at 2:20, Dr. Rocha will be coming in, and he will be presenting the proposed way in which we will be reducing the budget by $10.5 million to the group. There'll be a written document that has been prepared, and Dr. Rocha will introduce it, and then we will discuss it. In the interim, I'm going to pass around some general information, some updated information. The first thing I'm going to pass around is a budget update that has been prepared by Dan Troy, who is the Vice Chancellor for Fiscal Services for the Chancellor's Office. The yellow highlighting is mine, and used to drive all my teachers crazy and all the way through my doctoral classes about, gee, you really do a lot of highlighting, but I do. But the bottom line is that What I've highlighted is what I consider to be sort of the key information. The key information starting with the notion of, for the second year in a row, the budget relies on mid-year trigger cuts, and that the November ballot initiative is going to be very critical for 1213. And the next paragraph we talk about, in order to avoid the nearly $6 billion in painful mid-year reductions, that ballot initiative is possible, and then it spells out next what areas of the if the ballot initiative does not pass, how that's going to impact the various segments of higher education. The $5.4 billion from Proposition 98, that's basically K through 14, and that's why the public schools, K-12 districts, as well as the community colleges, get the biggest hit should the initiative not pass. But you can see below that what happens to the other areas of higher education and local police departments and what have you. Then you can see that under education highlights what happens if it does pass and the impact of $2.9 billion additional dollars on Prop 98. And then the Department of Finance talks about what successful passage of the ballot initiative would lead to, which would result in a total growth of $17.2 billion over the next 4 years. All that is very good news. And at the bottom of the page, it gets into the impact of the 1213 budget on community colleges. So if the ballot initiative passes, there will not be any new reductions. And there will also be $50 million in growth funding, which would result in approximately $1 million of growth to us, assuming we were able to collect the FTS, and obviously we would be able to do that. It would allow the system to buy down almost $160 million in deferrals. The categorical programs would basically remain as they are, untouched. And there would not be any repeal of SB 361, which is because the legislature also rejected the governor's proposal to revise our general apportionment system, which is what SB 361 related to. Approval of new mandated block grants, which is something we'll need to talk about at a later date. And then the hold harmless as it relates to the redevelopment agencies and the funding that came from the redevelopment agencies to the districts. However, the important stuff is what happens if, in fact, the initiative fails. The immediate trigger cut of nearly $5.4 billion. That would result in about a $210 million hit to the community colleges, the new funding that was proposed. It would result in base cuts made to the community college in terms of workload reductions. And there would be trigger cuts that would basically be devastating to our colleges. So the admonition is that the districts need to budget carefully to account for this potential mid-year reduction. Then on the conclusion, a year at risk, it really goes on to talk about what I like to keep saying, the cash is king, that because of the deferrals that are planned for 1213, almost whether the initiative passes or not, that about 40+% of the funding that we normally would get in the first 5 months of the 1213 fiscal were going to be deferred to the last quarter, and the last quarter is really defined as late May or June of 1213. So what that means is that whether the initiative passes or fails, even if it passes and the $6.7 million of roughly cuts to come back to us, we really wouldn't get that money until the last quarter of 1213. So we really can't plan on it being available to help us with our issue for next year. And so what they're basically saying is this makes managing cash flow a difficult juggling act even under the best of circumstances. Of course, districts should be prepared for mid-year trigger cuts, but they will also need to have sufficient reserves available to ride out the slow flow of state general fund allocations and handle other risks and emergencies that may arise at either the state or local level. So this is a very clear information piece as to what's going to happen next year, initiative or no initiative. Now, because I gave you a bummer, I'm going to give you a little good news right now.
You have Danny.
Could you
Yes,
just,
yes, Danny, I'm sorry.
State again where this came from?
Dan Troy is the Vice Chancellor for Fiscal Services for the California Community College Chancellor's Office. So he's the highest ranking fiscal officer in our system. Any other questions on that?
Yeah, just a second.
Yeah, Dwayne.
So if I was to understand this, then essentially 5.2 billion is going to hit K-12?
K-12 through 14.
No, just K-12, since we would be hit by what, 209?
Oh, yeah, I see your point. 5.4 billion total. Yes, that's correct.
Do we see, particularly since we support a certain area of in our district here, you see any ramifications with respect to our K-12 organizations and how it might impact us as we? I just kind of wonder about that.
Yeah, there will be.
Kind of gloss over that, and I'm thinking, wow, 5.2 billion to K-12.
Yes.
Yeah, the K-12 districts will undergo yet another round of severe reductions, layoffs, reducing the school year, I think is the plan, furloughs, reductions, just massive continued layoffs and what have you.
I wonder if any of that and somehow indirectly hits us as another, I don't know, in terms of our partnerships with any of them. I just wonder about that particular piece. I just actually did the math on that just to understand the K-12 implications there, because they've been already, I know a lot of school teachers or a lot of administrative offices, districts, they've all had really heavy hits.
Yeah, the Pasadena Unified School District, for example, over the last 3 or so years has chopped about $27 million out of its budget. And I believe they're laying off, if this thing doesn't happen, another 100 to 200 staff members, librarians, counselors, the whole 9 yards. Yeah. No, it's devastating. Okay, so a little bit of positive news. I just passed out this, the controller releases the June cash update. And the long and the short of that is that the June total revenues were $247 million above projections, and that overall the state ended the fiscal year with a cash deficit of $9.6 billion, which is better than they had hoped. But the operative word there, language there is that the deficit is being covered with internal borrowing, temporary loans from special funds. So the state, too, is balancing its budget through inter-fund borrowing, if you will, as far as basically trying to deal with their cash deficit. But the fact that they're using that money to balance their budgets means that there's less for them to give to local districts such as ourselves so that we can get our money on time to balance our situation. So basically they're pushing the problem down to the local level in many respects. But the good news is that things are, June was a better month than they anticipated, and that's really positive information. Now, the next thing, since we were talking about, oh, I'm sorry, Dave. Yes, sir.
Yeah, there's two initiatives on the ballot. One is for K-12s and community colleges. But if the other one passes, K-12's benefits, community colleges doesn't.
That's correct.
Take that into consideration of what it's going to impact community colleges if the other one passes?
Well, if the other one passes, if the Munger bill passes, the Munger initiative passes, the community colleges don't get anything because basically the Munger initiative is tied specifically to K-12. There was a major victory that the governor's office had by allowing his initiative to be placed in front of the Munger and all other initiatives that are going on the ballot. Another piece of information that I heard recently is that the governor is pushing hard for pension reform to occur prior to November 6th. His whole point of that, and he's basically working with the legislature to try and enact that, is by getting pension reform signed before November 6th, it sends a strong message to the electorate that they can afford to vote for the tax initiative because he's helped to put some brakes on pensions that are out there. Unfortunately, or fortunately, depending on your perspective, the state legislature, particularly the Democrats, only want to, as I heard it on the radio, for example, nibble around the edges of pension reform. The governor sent them back to the drawing board saying, no, we need major pension reform because, again, I need the voters of a mind to vote for this initiative or our K through 14 schools or higher education are going to get slaughtered. So there's a big push on pension reform to try and motivate voters to feel good about the tax initiative, which right now, as far as I understand it, is pretty much still a 50-50 thing at best.
Right, but if the Namunga one does pass, are we still going to get cut? Community college is going to get cut?
As far as I know, the answer is yes, unless something else happens. But as far as I know, the answer is yes. Someone? Oh, it's 2:20, hard time. That's what he's pointing out there. All right, so what we're going to do is we're going to take a break here. I announced to the group at the 2:20 Dr. Rocha was going to be here to present to us a proposed reduction for next year. Dr. Rocha.
Great, thanks, Bob.
We have copies.
Let me make another document and, oh, hang on.
So we have that one.
I'm not rushing the stage. I'm just,
That's okay. You can. That's all right. We're used to that.
I'm giving you some documents.
All right. And thank you, sir.
Let's see, I'll take, you can take that, and I'll take one of those.
Gotcha.
Okay.
And then you want me to pass these out yet?
Don't hand it out yet.
Gotcha.
Okay, but hand out that first one, please. Okay. There you go. Now, I'm speaking to the microphone. That's my advice to all of you. Thank you for having me, but I'm here on serious business. And the serious business is this. By September 5th, the board meeting of September 5th, okay, I have to submit a budget for fiscal year 2012-2013 to the Board of Trustees. That budget has to be adopted that night. That budget has a reduction in it of $10.5 million. And so between now and September 5th, we have to develop a recommendation for how we are going to dig $10.5 million out of our budget. So I'm here to talk about that and to lay out some proposals, and I want to be frank about them, to get to that number, and then to answer any questions that you may have. First of all, let me do some math. I'll just get right to it, and forgive me for dispensing with the pleasantries, except to thank you, and to thank Bob, and thank all of the members of Brac for the work that you've done all year. You've got some still harder work in front of you. I've given you a sheet that is from the salary disclosure, which is the summary page of the salary disclosure for the total cost of employees at PCC in the calendar year 2011. You can take it, whether it's a calendar year or a fiscal year, it's about the same number. And I want you to doodle on this along with me. You can see that last year, the total salaries paid out to all employees by category totaled $88 million. Okay, these are facts. These are not guesses. These are not, estimates. These are facts. Okay, and you can see what the amounts are. The largest amount by far goes to instruction for faculty, both full-time and part-time. When you add classified staff, you have 75% of our budget. There's relatively little in administration. Okay. If you look at the total cost of employee, I think this is in blue, it comes to $110 million. What is the total cost of employee? The total cost of employee means we all get paid and we all have health benefits. And unlike most districts, we have 100% paid district paid benefits for employee, spouse, and family PPO. Now, we don't want to take that away, but we should not take that benefit for granted. So that comes to $110 million. Now, how much on top of that do you think we spend so-called in paper clips, supplies, what we call discretionary spending, Okay, no guesses. I'll give you the number. It's $10 million, okay? So over and above salaries, we have about $10 million that goes to, make sure that supplies and the so-called discretionary accounts, non-salary accounts, are filled. Now, I want you to take $110 million and add $10 million to it, all right? And so you come out, obviously, with $120 million. These are facts. Our budget for 2012-13, as you should know from the budget that was signed, is $105 million. That means we're spending at a rate of $120 million. And the state, in the budget that it signed 2 weeks ago, is going to send us $105 million. So do the math. We are short. We are well short. Okay. And so we are going to have to find, at a minimum, about $10.5 million. And I want to go through a document that the Board of Trustees Subcommittee for Budget Facilities and Technology developed last Monday night. I had a meeting with me and Bob and Dwayne attended to try and get a handle on what we're going to do in terms of moving forward with the budget. So, Bob, if you would hand out that document, and I brought 25 copies. So if there's colleagues, if there's extra copies, you're more than welcome to them. I do want to go over this because this was developed by the administration and the Board of Trustees. The Board of Trustees has already seen this and has approved this document for discussion, but not final action, but for discussion at next week's board meeting. Now, I start this way. I'm going to lay out everything on this document that exists in the budget world. And our task together is to come up with $10.5 million. So, first of all, let me tell you why we have to come up with $10.5 million, okay? At the top, you'll see the budget reduction math. From 11-12, you recall the February surprise and the Ezra budget triggers. That was $2.5 million cut in that year. But that cut was made as a permanent cut to our base and our so-called workload reduction. Workload reduction means the number of FTES that the state will fund us for, apportionment. So we have to take that $2.5 million cut. Then we have the $6.7 million cut from the budget that was just signed. I'll talk in a moment about the tax initiative, but the budget that was just signed on June 30th cuts the budget of the college $6.7 million. And then you may recall, you may not, that last year we balanced the budget by borrowing from the dental fund. We all have dental benefits. $1.3 million that was an overage, and we piped it over to, balance the budget. That money needs to be paid back. So, we need to come up with 10.5. At this point, these are the actions that we are able to take. When I say actions that we're able to take, in a moment, we're going to talk about actions that we cannot take now because they need to be negotiated with our union partners. So, the actions that the board and I see that we can take are that, number one, a reduction in force is a layoff, whether it's a reduction in hours or an actual layoff of heads, people. of 50% are, if you look on this sheet, all of the money is on this sheet right here, okay? So there's $7 million in temporary, unclassified, unentitled employees. It is likely that our union partners would say that before that we go to layoff or reduction in force for our entitled employees, that we would have to see to our temporary workforce. So that would get us about $3 million, not the whole $7, because it's, there's some unemployment that needs to be paid and so on. So we estimate about $3 million. Then there is the actual state cut, the state mandated workload reduction. Our apportionment enrollment revenue will be reduced, not might be reduced based on the tax initiative, is reduced as of July 1st by 1,487 FTS, equivalent to a reduction of 578 sections. Right now, which is an action that we can take, is that we are planning to schedule 4,777 sections next year. That would save about $3 million at current rates. We are proposing another loan. We have GASB. GASB is a accounting term, but OPEB is the other benefits for retiree health benefits. We have retirees, and we continue to pay them their health benefits. We have to put money into that fund every year as a law, as a GASB regulation, as a federal regulation. That fund has, if you will, an overage. There's some technical aspects to it, but we feel that we can drag $1 million over from the GASB. And then would be a 10-day furlough for all non-faculty, as everyone from the president down to classified. This would be scheduled for after January 1st, 2013. There would be no furlough if the November ballot initiative passes. So we've scheduled the furlough for out there in the hope that the tax initiative will pass. The furlough, as it stands, would still need to be negotiated with our labor union partners. There will be no classes scheduled in winter session next year. There may be a few that are scheduled. I understand there are about 50, some science courses and so on and so forth. But other than courses that are required as a part of state board exams and so on, there'll be virtually no classes offered in winter, and therefore no students here and no services to provide. So what we will do is we will take a week off at the beginning of the January and then a week off in the spring. Because that will impact all of us, we will take the reductions in 6 installments rather than to take it all at once. And that will develop about $1 million. And then we propose eliminating all non-contractual faculty release time. Some release time is contractual, but much of it is not. And faculty who do not have contractual release time will be returned to the teaching schedule, unless they compete and they are hired for open administrative or staff positions. Now that only comes to $8.5 million, and we're $2 million short. So as we saw it, unless you want to increase the impact on one of those items 1 through 5, that we would be willing to borrow money against our deferrals. Now, I've been talking about this for 2 years, and everybody keeps walking around thinking that we have a balance. We do not have a balance, all right? We have a number on a piece of paper that's an IOU from the state. On June 27th, I was called, and I was told that our balance in our Los Angeles County General Fund account was negative $850,000. That's not a good thing. So What we did is that we sought authorization from the board, and we got it, to borrow money from the Capital Outlay Fund. And we transferred almost $7 million from the Capital Outlay Fund so that all of us could be paid on July 1st. Okay? That borrowing will have to continue in this next year unless we want to cut still deeper now. So now, on the next board meeting, I am asking the board for authorization to borrow money from Los Angeles County for what's known as temporary revenue anticipation notes from Los Angeles County. These are collateralized by the receivable of this money the state owes us. So when we get the money, when and if we get the money from the state, we will pay the money back. Now that is actually a cash flow kind of consideration there, hoping to defer some of the difficult actions if the ballot initiative passes. That's how we come up with 10.5. And so while this is going to be discussed next Wednesday at board, between now and September, somehow the board has to come up with 10.5. So if you have any other ideas for where we're going to get that money, looking at the salary sheets or anything else, then this would be the time to discuss it. And I will, answer questions, and then I'll depart so that you can discuss it candidly outside my presence. Again, these are facts that the board vouches for, and this is a document that the board and I developed last Monday. Now let me turn the page, and let me be clear about the tax initiative, all right? And it just says it in plain English. If the November tax initiative passes, the 2012-2013 budget cut of $6.7 million will be restored. Happy days are here again. But the cash, the money, will be written as an IOU to the district and will not be paid until June of 2013. Now, assuming there are no legal challenges to the initiative, and assuming the state doesn't have some other black hole that opens up, like pension reform, we can count on that money coming back. We would be able to do away with the furlough and some of the other reduction measures. But all of that money, since that cut was a so-called workload reduction. Workload reduction is we are reducing the number of students we are paying you for. It's the board's position that all of that cut, if it's restored, needs to go back into classes for students. Okay? So that money isn't going on the table for us to spend. That money is going, well, basically it will go to faculty salaries for more classes for students. That's it, my friends. That's it. That's all we got. Now, there are other actions that we must negotiate with the PCC Faculty Association. We could freeze step and column pay raises for faculty that are scheduled to be paid on August 1st. That would have to be negotiated. We will talk to the PCC next time about that. I won't proffer a guess as to whether we'll make any progress with that, but that is a possibility. We can still eliminate the winter session. We will not have classes in winter. We have a proposal to the FA that if the FA accepts the district proposal, that the savings of about $1 million would be used to add 200 sections in the summer of 2013. And, that would convert to the trimester calendar and convert to the Carnegie Hour. Why is the Carnegie Hour important? The Carnegie Hour is important because it simply schedules classes on the hour at 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 1, 2, the way most colleges and universities do in the country. It is also important for financial aid. the federal government has said that we need to prove why we're not on the Carnegie Hour, because it's the most common unit used for financial aid calculations. Now, it's fairly obvious any one of our students who have tried to get a schedule knows how difficult it is to get a schedule because one class starts at 8 and another class starts before that class is ended. Now, that's just common sense. We've been asking for it for months, and I don't see any reason why we can't come to agreement on this, and that would save some money, even if we didn't go to the calendar. But we will talk to our union friends about this. And then, obviously, our proposal is to eliminate the faculty overload entitlement. That costs about $4 million a year, and we estimate if we eliminate the entitlement, that would produce a $2 million savings. For example, the retirees who have no entitlement whatsoever to additional classes said that they would be willing to teach at the adjunct rate, and said to the board in open session that they would be willing to do that. But we can't do that unless we come to agreement with the FA. Okay, those are our friends in the union. Now we have friends in the Senate. Actions we must, and in saying all this, I'm just laying out the world of possibilities. I'm not making proposals. I'm not impugning or implying blame for anyone. I'm just trying to say where we're at. Because if you look at my writings, when I first came here, I said, we're in a heap of trouble. Last January, I wrote it all. We're in a heap of trouble. I like that. February, we're in a heap of trouble. Budget cut, okay? Well, here we are, okay? We're in a heap of trouble. When you look at your bank account, you're negative $800,000. All right, so now we have to work with the Senate. If we wanted to increase average class size over the NCNs, which are set as an academic and professional matter by the Senate, for example, if we wanted to enable faculty to add to room size wherever that was possible, okay, without extra payment, that would be a significant savings, because you can imagine with 4,000 sections, or even less than that, but with 4,700 sections, and if you could add 6 students in every class, I'm not saying you can, but if you could, you can do the math, and you see that is thousands and thousands of additional enrollments at no extra cost. Okie doke. Now, in items 2, 3, and 4, I want to be clear here. These are now mandates, and I have no expectation of the Senate, who is doing yeoman's work, which I admire greatly. The work that we describe here is not work that can be done in one semester or 1 year. It's ongoing work that the Senate has taken up. I'm just putting it here that when that work is completed in its time, that it will result in savings. So one of the things that we will ask the Senate to look at is the norming of our course unit values with that of our transfer targets in the CSU. An English 101 in the CSU runs out at 3 units. Ours runs out at 3 + 1. So that reduces the number of faculty that are available to teach courses. It reduces their workload. And this is common in English, in math, and in other disciplines. No problem. That's not a blame on the faculty, but that system was invented when we were paid for every student who walked in the door. Remember those days 5 years ago? Remember those days when we were out there trying to recruit students? Because every student meant another $4,500 in apportionment. Those days are gone. Okay, so we will ask the Senate to continue its work on looking at course value. That's a long-term project. We can't expect any savings from that this year. The Senate is one of the leaders in the state for SB 1440 associate degree programs. Why does that save money? Why is that so important? Okay, because an SB 1440 program says that a student will get through from A to Z, soup to nuts, entry to transfer, in 20 courses, if you can offer them, right? and that will reduce the number of courses that we'll have to offer for students to repeat. And we'll continue our FYE development so that basic skills courses are competency-based rather than credit-based. Here I want to make a point, and some of you who are not, teachers may not realize this. Basic skills, English, math, so much of our budget goes to basic skills courses. Not one credit of those courses advances a student to transfer a degree. Not one. So we have many students who use up their financial aid eligibility on courses that do not advance them to the degree. Now, because of the brilliant work of many faculty and many of those in the Senate, you are working on competency-based programs that will take down the gates and not take the money away from students, but do more of a competency-based program so that those dollars can be put into sections at the freshman and sophomore level. But that's kind of out there. None of this is going to help us by September 5th or January 5th or even June 5th of the next year. Okay. So that's our kind of project list with the Senate. One of the things we don't talk about is that we'll have to continue our actions for institutional effectiveness and accreditation compliance. Outcomes-based program review of all instructional programs, transfer, CTE, CEC, and non-credit, extended education, outcomes-based program review of all book services such as the bookstore. I mean, that's just stuff we need to do for accreditation. And so we need to look at that. If we do identify programs that are low enrolled or have no full-time faculty in them, we need to look at those seriously and see if not if we cut them and hurt people and hurt students, but start to teach them out over time, so that a year or two down the road, you can use those funds for the high-demand classes. And then finally, I did want to make a couple of notes on other hiring costs. Despite the fact that we are in a budget crisis, we will have to do some hiring this year. We will continue to comply with our FON obligation, whatever that may be when we compute it, and I will approve that many new faculty positions. Just to be clear, there are no such thing as SERP savings. The SERP costs the district nearly an additional $2 million per year to fund the annuities for retirees. All of the dollars of vacated positions have already flowed to the bottom line, but for which we would have had to take these actions the last year or two. Right? These dollars have been applied to the previous state budget reductions in each of the last 2 fiscal years. This has lessened and delayed the worst of the impact of the state budget cuts and cash deferrals now clearly upon us. And then finally, the district does intend to hire and replace approximately 40 essential administrators and staff in essential areas such as business and fiscal services, facilities, instruction, and student services. Sources of funds will be additional cost reductions in discretionary spending. So, go light on the copier. And contributions from grants. In the last 2 years, we've received, I announced today in a press conference that we've received grant awards of $17 million. Okay. We can't use all of that money, but some of it comes back to help defray the costs, administrative costs, hiring costs. And obviously, over the last 2 years, we've had over 120 retirements, so replacing 40 of them is a reasonable plan, or at least it seems reasonable to the Board of Trustees. Okay, so, and then, you know what? Sometimes when you're in a budget crisis, you actually need to invest and spend money. I don't know if we can, but we never talk about our revenue possibilities, or at least I'm sure you do. I apologize for that. But we don't seem to put much emphasis on how we can increase the size of the pie rather than keep on reducing expenses. Because you realize, as I've said very clearly, as I've shown very clearly, there's no way to reduce expenses further without true pain. We could add international students. An additional 1,000 international student adds $5 million in revenue at the top line and increases the number of seats available for district resident students. That's a fact. Okay, so we would like to get started on that this year. We see no realistic hope of adding $5 million or 1,000 students this next year. None. Okay? But I'd like us to talk about getting that started so that 2 years from now, we have some revenue coming in. Foundation fundraising and contributions from assets. Again, there's some little help there, but the foundation is not going to raise $2 or $3 million for us this year. Okay? Our grants program is going great guns, but those grants go to dedicated outcomes. And then we do have some opportunities in contract education. But this is kind of, I wouldn't say longer term, but things that we would just start. And I know some of this has started, but we can't budget this. You know, there's no way that in making an adopted budget for the board that I could budget this. The only thing that I can see that I can budget so far is what's on the first page. So with that, I appreciate the time, Bob. I'm sorry for taking so long. I'll be glad to ask questions and then leave you to discuss.
I see Dave's hand and then Danny's hand.
Any questions, Dave?
Yeah, I understand the first page is the 10.5 million. Now, on the second page, you have an estimated, if everything goes right, about $4 million. Is that additional to the 10.4 million?
No.
So
If any savings that we're able to realize, but again, I want to be realistic, okay? I don't see a realistic point, at least on this day, that the savings that might come from union negotiations or that might come from, Senate, those things take time. We're not even in the academic year yet. So, but what you're saying, though, is if they were realized, it would lessen the 10.5.
And then, I'm sorry, but the second question is, why are you only reducing the hourly and temporary 50% and still asking for furloughs from classified?
That's a good question. Okay, that's you guys can kick it around. You want to lay off more of them? Then bring that recommendation forward. Talk about it. I mean, that's your workforce. If that's if that is a considered view. Now the board and I felt that look, you know what? All of us are going to end up sharing. The faculty are not held harmless from this. They're going to lose their release time, and the costs of their contract are going to come down. We've lost 25% of our income over the last 4 years, so the costs of the new contract are going to have to be reduced. All right, so anyone who's sitting here thinking that the status quo is going to be kept in terms of costs is just not being realistic. So having said that, though, the college needs to operate, and we have barely 45 days before classes begin again. And we felt two things, that 50% taking out your hourly workers, taking out the workers that are in your offices right now, would be as much as we could do to keep operations patched through. And then, frankly, I'm going to church and praying for the tax initiative that would defer the furlough. Okay? But if you guys want to take out 75% of the hourly and actually see, that's what your job is that what is the actual impact of that? Okay? I don't really know. For me, that's kind of a macro number. So, good questions. Other questions? Dan?
Yeah, and looking at the first sheet that you gave us with the totals there, it says it was created January 31st, 2012, so it covers the employee costs for the calendar year of 2011. So we had the SERP, the first SERP, where we had 87 employees retire. So this only accounts, my point is that the bottom line of the total cost of employees has gone down fairly significantly from this amount for 2012, because for 6 months of 2011, we had 87 more employees than we have now, making a lot more money, that have now retired. And in addition to that, for this year, we've had a SERP 2 and a SERP 3. Now, I know not nearly as many people have retired, but so this number isn't really an accurate number for 2012. So to talk about that number and being that's the number that our bottom line is to pay employees right now just doesn't seem to be accurate. So that's my first point.
Dan, I'm glad you raised that, and I think I could speak to it. If you look at the salary chart from 11, okay, you'll see that the total with benefit cost comes to 110, right? But you notice that I said that you had to add on to that $10 million for what I call supplies, discretionary spending. Right. So the total nut was 120. Our budget is 105, okay, for next year. That's a fact. And so 120 and 105 is not 10.5, that's 15. So to answer your question, yes, the employee base has been reduced in 12, and that has realized a savings of $4 million-ish that gets thrown right to the bottom line. That money is not held in accounts, Dan. If it, believe me, if it was held in accounts, we wouldn't have been less than zero in the bank a few weeks ago.
I didn't say it was being held in accounts.
No.
I'm just
No,
saying
what
that
I'm
our bottom
that
line.
There's no account called SERP savings anywhere in the budget.
I understand that. I've never suggested that. So what I am saying, though, that is that $110 million for employees isn't an accurate number for 2012 because there are close to 100. I don't know the exact numbers on how many took SERP 2 and 3. But anyway, that's point number one. I'm
saying you're right. It's not 110. It's about 105 because of the reduced number of positions.
Well, the number we saw at one point, it was $8 million less. But anyway, we can look into that. So,
well, you can look into it, but between now and September 5th, the board has to make a decision on 10.5.
Right, I know. Well, that's one of the things we can look into between now and September 5th.
Hey, believe me, Dan, if you can come up with it, more power to you.
The second thing is, on that same point, where it says no SERP savings, I realize we didn't take that money and put it in an account. We used it for the cuts that took place. But to suggest that the district, it's costing the district $2 million more per year, I'm sure you didn't mean to come across this way, but the way I read it, it makes it sound like it's actually costing us $2 million per year for the SERP savings. Now, you couldn't have offered a SERP, you can't offer any kind of retirement incentive that actually costs the district money. That would be a gift of public funds. It's illegal.
That's not correct, Dan. It's costing us about $2 million a year.
Right, but the total cost to the college from the savings of the salaries, it doesn't cost us $2 million more because of the SERP, and that's the way this comes across to me, anyway. Okay. So I'm just clarifying this.
And just to give you some,
what you're saying, Dan, is there's a $2 million a year cost that has to go into the operating budget.
Right.
That we did not have before because those annuities have to be paid. Okay, that was the whole deal done out in the open. So that's a $2 million additional cost that we would not have had. You are correct in saying, though, that that $2 million is not necessarily a net cost, that there were savings from vacated positions that flowed to the bottom line, and then you add $2 million to fund the annuities.
Right. So that's all I was trying to make clear. So I just wanted, because I think some people are going to read this and think, oh, we did the SERP savings and we're now spending $2 million more dollars. We're not spending $2 million.
But
we are spending $2 million for that.
The only thing is, I will say this realistically, Dan, I know your view on this, but we are well past the point that the board is going to spend a lot more time on the accounting. We have a whole team of forensic accountants on the ground right now, and believe me, if there is no way that I'm coming to you suggesting furloughs and borrowing money unless we were broke. So we can continue to discuss that, but the board position and my position is that by September 5th, we need to come up with 10.5, and that's borrowing 2. That's by pasting it together by borrowing $2 million. And some of the board members don't want to do that. So, you know, if you have I get talking about the methodology and the way the accounting works and so on, but 2 plus 2 have to equal 10.5 in reductions from last year's base. But, you know, I'm with you.
I'm just trying to clarify what this is saying
I'm with
here.
you. I'm being emphatic simply because I've been emphatic on this point for 2 years, that we're coming to this day. And now I'm sitting before Brac 45 days before an adopted budget, and I am having to recommend borrowing money and laying people off, and laying the most defenseless people off. So if you think that I haven't run around this college and tried to find every available dollar before we hit this day, I know you don't think that. And just like you, I would, you know, try and look for any other way that we could figure out some way out of the 10.5, but there isn't. And I'm being emphatic because, you know, I don't want you to come out of your deliberations, okay, because I don't think that the board would think that's a helpful recommendation and say, well, we're going to what else? You know, I'm trying to get at what are the things that we can actually structurally change in terms of our costs. So,
Well, I'm not accusing you of anything, and I'm just trying to talk about the facts, okay? So I thought we were here to talk about the facts. That's what I want to do. So I got another question on this repay the dental fund. The last time I checked, there was about $1.9 million in that dental fund, and it costs us about, I believe we spend about $1.3 million in that dental fund. And I know that there was $2.9 million in it 2 years ago, and we didn't fund it last year for the 1.3. So my question here is, why is it in this year, under this crisis, when there is enough money in that dental fund to make through another year, that we would have to repay it, or at least repay all of it? Because that 1.3 would be part of the TRAN fund. If we borrowed that money, we're going to be paying interest on it. Why don't we just take it out of that dental fund? Because there's enough money in that fund as far as I understand. Now, maybe I don't understand.
I'm going to give you current balances there's right now $1.4 million in that account.
Okay.
I'm going to give you some current balances, and we can talk more about it.
yeah,
We spend about 1.
If there is which is, you know, fair enough, Danny. If there is someplace else we can go, okay, but it's already, I want to tell you, it's already pushing the board
Right.
well past where I think together we can get them. When I already had to borrow $7 million from capital outlay to make this month's payroll. And now I'm going to ask the board to borrow another $2 million. And so you can check the dental fund, and if that'll help a few $100,000, I'm completely open to that, okay?
Yeah.
Yeah,
it's just a question of, I'm not even sure if legally what the minimum is we would have to maintain in that account. So we'd have to check into that. And also that just gets us dangerously close to what we're going to need anyway. That means that we just bring it down to zero, essentially, with potential increases and the like, so.
Right, but my point is that why borrow it at whatever percentage we're going to have to pay on the TRAN and not borrow it out of that dental fund when there's enough money in there to
We
Well,
could
you
certainly
know,
talk
that-
about it.
So,
Yeah.
I'm certainly open to that. You know, I think as Bob will explain, the TRAN is virtually, you know, no interest. You know, interest rates are almost nothing now.
Oh, that's good.
So that's why I booked it in, because the actual interest expense is negligible. But certainly that's something that we could look at. Anyway, you guys get it. I appreciate all your questions, tough and easy, and I know you have a hard job to do, but we've got to, you know, just keep moving.
Got just one more question. I thought the Gatsby fund was going to be 1.4 million that was going to be transferred, but yet it only shows 1 million here.
I can explain that I don't know if Dr. Roach, his eyes rolled in the back of his head when I explained it to him the other day, so I don't know if he wants to sit through the explanation again.
You know, and again, look, you know, I'm with you. If there's anything that we can do to delay, you know, even the furloughs themselves, those are booked but delayed. Okay, so you know, so we can all pray for the tax increase to pass, and then those, you know, would go away, and then we would have half a year and can pull back some of the hourly layoffs. But you know, I think that you know, anything that we can do to patch through. But the larger issue is, this is going to have to be the year that we begin to restructure our costs. You know, because you can, you know, if you're in a position where you're $800,000 in the hole and can't make payroll, and you're talking about borrowing from the dental fund this year and borrowing from GASB and the retirees' benefits the next year, this is not the way to run the college fiscally. Our costs have stayed here while our income has gone to here. And we are going to have to join almost every other district in the state to restructure our costs down and to become more efficient, more cost effective. I don't know of any other way that we are going to be able to make it through. And having said that, however, if we can do that, I think we can make it through and actually increase the number of enrollment seats available to students and you know, preserve a good environment for all faculty and staff. So anyway, I'm sorry to bring the ants to the picnic, but I wanted you to know the minute I knew. I did have a consultation with Julio Huerta, who's the president of ISSUE, and sat down and went over this with him because, oh, there he is. Oh, okay. And I just wanted to make sure that you knew that I met with him in advance to give him this information. So I really appreciate you kind of gnawing on this and let me know what you come up with, and you know, I'll stand by.
Could we get an electronic copy of this? Can you email it out to the people, at least on this?
I'd have to ask
committee?
the board. You know, let me
Okay.
ask the board, because it's a document that we're preparing for the agenda tonight. So if the board, a version of this will probably go into the board packet, and then it'll be a, you know, public record document that you'd have an email copy of. What I'm saying is I can't do it until the agenda is approved tonight.
Okay.
Okay. But as soon as the agenda is approved, I will do that. Happy to do that. Okay, thanks, Bob. Thanks for the time.
Yes, thank you, Dr. Rocha. Okay, so let's open the floor to a discussion of this document. So let's just start. Who would like to start first?
Well, I thought over the past year we've been talking about adding international students, and I don't have the numbers in front of me, but I thought we had already increased the number of students pretty significantly since last year and the year before. It's been going up. You know,
I'm going to let Dr. Bell respond to that, but I think we're sitting about 1,200 now, Dr. Bell?
That's correct. Our international student enrollment is about 1,200 students now. It has gone up over the last year and a half. It hasn't gone up significantly in that the numbers haven't jumped large percentages. We've gone from about 800 to roughly 1,000 the previous year, and then another 200, 250 this year. So we're averaging an increase of about 200, 250 international students over the past two succeeding academic periods. We're planning to make a much more intensive effort to do that. One of the delays, however, is making sure we have the infrastructure in place to support that level of increase of international students. And that takes time to build that in.
so, but if we're already 250 more than last year, that means we're 1.25 million of more income than we had the previous year, based on these numbers, because 5 million, 1,000 is 5 million, so a quarter, that would be 1.25 million, roughly. I mean, I'm just ballparking.
It's rough. It's rough numbers. It's part of our revenue. Marie, I'm trying to think. What is our current international income in general as we go forward here? Tuition and non-resident tuition.
I have to check on that. I think it's about 2 million. But I have to verify the record, particularly the tuition fees only.
That's the tuition coming in from out-of-state or foreign students.
That's
both-
correct.
both
Right.
together.
You just want the tuition. I'll verify that.
Okay. All right, other questions, comments? Let's start, if you don't mind, let's go ahead and let Kevin and Alex and then Dave.
So I just want to make two particular comments. One was, the main one was, I'm obviously not really keen on the idea of contract education as an option. Thankfully, it's not coming up this year. The other one was the GASB fund. I think while the $1 million is there, we as a committee should definitely search for somewhere else, because going into people's retirements is a very tense situation, fiscally and just.
And let me explain briefly that.
I know it's, yeah.
But that, first of all, by borrowing this money from the GASB fund, it does not impact the other post-employment benefits of the employees at all.
Oh, I don't.
Everybody would still be they get a $1,440 benefit. The way this thing works is that when our employees turn 65 and they go to Medicare, the lifetime benefit that the district offers retired employees is $1,440 a year to help fund a supplemental insurance policy should they choose to do that. That is not at all going to be put in jeopardy here.
I didn't believe it was.
Okay.
My issue is I just think it'll cause undue stress among people who don't realize that.
Well, we can certainly make that clear.
Yeah.
Yeah. And Dave, just while we're on the GASB thing, there are actually two things we have to contribute to the OPEB GASB. One is we have to, by GASB regulations, maintain actuarially a balance, a fund of a little over $15.5 million at the moment. That requires an annual contribution. That contribution is about $1.4 million. We skipped that payment last year. In addition to that, we have to pay a little over $1 million a year to actually fund the benefits that are paid to people in that annual year. So we've got two payments. The idea here is that this $1 million, i.e. the money that would pay to the beneficiaries, we would borrow it from our Fund 64, which is our self-insurance fund, the GASB. So we would self-fund it through our actuarial fund. And by the way, just for the matter of the record, and Dr. Rocha knows this, but he keeps getting it confused in his mind, the money that we borrowed for interfund borrowing came out of the GASB 64 account. It didn't come out of capital outlay.
No.
Capital outlay and the GASB account are the two accounts that we have monies in that we can borrow up to a maximum of 75% per fund. So we opted to take it out of the GASB account because it's really kind of a non-operating account. That capital outlay has got money coming from it for operational purposes, for technology and other things.
So the $7 million that you recently moved was from.
Yeah, it was actually $5 million. It was actually $5 million. And that daily, that's cash flow balance chart that I passed around. I will. It's actually reflected on that chart, and the board will do it. Just been a lot of numbers flying around, and we don't criticize Dr. Rocha for getting the numbers a little out of whack, but that's basically what we did. Alex, I think you were next. You got it. Dave, I think you were next.
Let's see. What I like to do is get a list of all the hourlies that we have on campus right now, who is actually critical, and what ones that they're recommending to reduce.
Yeah,
and if the ones are critical, why aren't we hiring and instead of keeping the hourlies?
Okay. Let me respond to that in several ways. First of all, this district has had a tradition of using a very, very large unclassified hourly workforce. It's been doing that for many, many, many years. That is an issue for issue and CSEA and others to deal with, I suppose, if they want to. The reason why the number was pegged at 50%, why Dr. Rocha and I and a couple of others thought that the 50% was right, is because the college depends mightily on that unclassified hourly workforce to transact the business that we do. I'm looking at Dan. The library depends mightily on these folks. To cut these folks by 50% in and of itself is going to represent a significant burden on the institution. Dan's got LAC, his Learning Assistance Center over at the CEC, for example. This 10.5 is designed to impact the academy, the teaching and learning of this institution, our faculty, our students, in as minimum a way as possible in order to continue that which the college does on a daily basis. Yes, we are cutting 578 sections, and we do that because we're not going to get paid for those. Yes, we are eliminating, and by the way, we're not really going to eliminate all non-contractual faculty release time. That's a goal. We are going to eventually get to that goal by virtue of other structural things, but there are key functions that are done by faculty by virtue of release time, by way of program director responsibilities in a number of our CTE areas or health science areas, learning assistance center areas, what have you. Some of those have to stay. But we will find at least $500,000 worth of release time. And that will also have impact on the program, but not directly in the classroom per se, and not directly on students who are in the 4,777 sections, as much as we can avoid that. So to answer your question specifically, if this group says, yes, it's going to be 50% or $3 million, or if the group says it's going to be 60% or 75% or what have you, we would immediately, well, and the board agrees, obviously, we would immediately go to all the managers in the area and say, look, we hate to tell you this, but you're going to have to reduce, that in the aggregate we had to reduce by 50%. $7 million has got to be cut by $3 million, or whatever the number is. You need to tell us what you can cut. And Dr. Bell will work with his managers, and I'll work with mine, and Vice President Cable, and we'll work with our managers, and we'll see what the impact is going to be, and then we'll play let's make a deal among us to basically put whatever's left, whatever resources are left, where they have to be. I know in the technology area, you depend quite a bit on unclassified hourly to support labs and what have you. But we'll probably send out a memo to our managers and say, okay, this is the reality. Now you tell us what you can get away, what you can absolutely get away with, and be really serious about it. And then if it comes back and we can figure it out, great. If not, then we will invoke our vice presidentialism and just say it shall be, because that's the only choice that we'll have.
Now, does this take into account, like Block 5A, all the hourlies we have there?
It's all unclassified hourlies. So it's college assistants, it's student assistants, it's the hourly custodians that we have, for example. It's everybody who is unclassified hourly.
At one time, the overtime came out of the hourly account. Is that?
Overtime is a separate account. A separate account. And at last look at that, we had spent roughly $685,000. And that was at the end of May 31st, as I recall, something like that. I got that information from Maggie Ori, our payroll supervisor. A large amount of that, by the way, is cadets and overtime for police officers, some almost $60,000.
The cadets are paid out of the parking funds, aren't they?
Some of them are, some of them aren't. But you're right. Yes, there is a blending of money. The total amount of overtime is that amount of money. Yes, John.
You know, I hope in looking at this classified reduction, many areas have lost contract classified employees that have been replaced with
Hourly people.
unclassified
That's
hourly.
right. That's correct.
And if removed, you started with a contract, and now you don't have one. You're struggling anyway with an uncontracted individual. So I hope, and I'm sure it will be, but I just need to say that there are folks limping along with those employees today, and any more impact, they will not just be limping, they'll be crawling.
And this is why I
be considered. I just needed to say that.
Yeah, I appreciate it. And that's why I argued to keep it at 50% at this point.
I'm glad you did.
Because I know what a burden it's going to be. In order to maintain level of services, even at that amount, is going to be tough.
Because it doesn't direct, certainly in the classroom, possibly, and it doesn't have an impact there, but it has an impact getting them into the classroom and providing services once students are there. So many of those support hourly folks are critical to the efficiency and operation of the college. So I'm glad it's at 50.
Yeah, thank you, sir. Yes, Marie.
We just found the answer for Danny. It's
Okay.
on the last document that we sent out. That is for the May. It's 7 point. The international students out-of-state revenue is 7.9 million.
Right,
It's
which,
as of May 31.
yeah, it's almost $8 million, which is almost 500,000 more than what was budgeted. So, and that's for, okay, that's just, yeah.
Yeah, and I think that, you know, basically, the district by law, we have to have a budget to the state by September 15th. We actually have to have a budget ready by the week of August 20th that would then go to the Board of Trustees Budget Facilities and Technology Committee. They then need to kick that around a little bit, and by, I believe it was August 31st, give or take, we have to have that thing printed and ready for the board member packets for approval on September 5th. So the clock is ticking. Now, I won't go through the list of other suggestions that I spent a lot of my weekend hours coming up with that, you know, that helped get us to where we are here. But there are a lot more cuts on this document that are a lot more damaging to the structural operations of this institution. This is, first of all, it requires on the TRAN, and by the way, it's a taxpayer revenue anticipation note, and you have to be very careful with TRANs. TRANs are for short-term borrowing that are secured by guaranteed receivables, although the word guaranteed is a little tricky because of the state. And you really can't use it to balance your budget. You can use it to help with your cash flow. So one of our board members already picked up on that, and frankly, it's a device to balance the budget, but it isn't really money. It is not really money that is balancing the budget, right, Marie? It's a device, frankly, and it's a little bit of Sacramento hocus pocus, to be honest with you.
Well, it's
but
to provide cash flow.
It's to provide cash flow. Now, if we want to take a second, and we don't have to look at the daily cash balance chart, you can see pretty much, yeah, Dwayne. Oh, Dan, do you have a question? I'm sorry? Yeah. Sure.
Given the news that we're getting today, Dwayne, I'm sorry, but I got to ask, are we still moving ahead with Smart 18?
We are looking at the budget and how that can be spread instead of it being, quote unquote, all of the aspects of that done in 18 months as to spread it out further. Much like the same way I reported at the Academic Senate discussions concerning, we're going to have to take a serious look at the budget implications to what our ultimate goals are.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
The other thing we're looking at is a potential lease finance of the elements of the AIS, elements of Smart 18, elements of network infrastructure, elements of other technology that would allow us to spread costs over 24, 36, 48, 60-month period.
Yeah, it's things that impact cash.
Right.
And how we can spread cash with the life of the technology involved. So it was a good point that was made by the Senate, and it was, you know, we're really looking at how do we still try to accomplish most of those objectives within the time frame, but then take the other aspects of that and spread them into other phases, hoping that at some point that the budget improves. So old SMART maybe could be brought up to new SMART later, things like that.
And there are other benefits to lease finance, including the built-in refreshing. Because when you lease some of this hardware, for example, at the end of its useful life, they take it away, and you enter into another lease finance, and you can refresh all your equipment. So there's other colleges and universities and hospitals. They do this all the time as a means of managing their capital outlay expenses tied to technology. So anyway, without belaboring the point, but just showing you the daily cash balance chart as of in 01, which is our unrestricted general fund, You can see on a daily basis, red being daily cash balance without the interfund borrowing, and the black being the daily cash balance with the interfund borrowing. And you can see where we were in June, and that large negative of $800,000 that Dr. Rocha referred to on the 27th. And we did have to kick in the interfund borrowing. We had permission from the board to do that. And that is what is getting us through. And then you see that we again pick up a problem again in July. We might need more interfund borrowing. But then at the bottom of the page, you'll see we got very good news yesterday from the state that is indicating that there may be two payments that are speeded up on July 12th and July 19th. Today is July 12th. Did it book?
Did we get that payment?
Did it book?
I haven't seen it posted.
Yeah.
Maybe I'll see it tomorrow or Monday.
Yeah. So it's in the mail. But so we'll see it either tomorrow or Monday. But anyway, the point is that will help. And I just want to remind everybody of that roughly $10 million a month, $9.5 to $10 million a month average cost to operate the institution. So that's what our balance is right now. Okay, let's go back to the chart. Yes, sir.
Before we get back to the chart, I may have missed a discussion, but I think Danny started a discussion when we were in the library about other large capital outlay line items that were sitting in accounts, like land acquisition, if that's the appropriate term. Was there a discussion about use of any of those funds to offset?
Yeah, what I'm going to do to maybe facilitate that discussion is I'm handing out now, this is a, as of June 30th, tentative fund balance, updated as late as this morning by Marie. And I'll give it a chance to get around, and a little bit of a typo there, which we can fix under the general fund unrestricted. But basically, you might recall that we had the May 31st, and we had the same chart that was provided, and you can see the 01, which is where we operate the college. You can see the GASB 45 and 64. You can see the capital outlay fund in 41, and all these things are the beginning fund balances, what the year-to-date revenue and expenditures are, what the ending fund balance is, and then what's encumbered against those expenses right now. And you can see the various balances. Now, it's important to note that also within the general fund 01 unrestricted dollars is where our reserves are. The district has to report to the state a minimum of 5%, and most years we target 8 to 12%, if I remember correctly. But those monies are also parked in the general fund, so we can't even theoretically use all of our general fund. We have to maintain at least 5% in there in order to not end up on the watch list in the chancellor's office.
Yeah, but that's only $5 million. I mean, on 105 of $6 million, whatever you want to say, 5.5.
Yeah.
But we've got almost 19 million.
Well, we have right now cash in county, because remember we use that's what we use to pay our bills. That's where the $10 million a month comes out of. So my point is at the end of the year when we do our final, when we send the budget to the board.
11 Qs.
Thank you, the 311 report. Thank you. When we send the 311 for 1213, the budget 311, we have to show them a reserve of at least 5%. Our board is very conservative, and it always looks for 8 to 10 to 12 if we can do it. I'm sure we'll have to budget that again this year. So anyway, that's where that money is, but it's the cash in county line that's very important. You might recall that the GASB, last time we looked at this, was $15,295,000, and that's where the $5 million came from for the interfund borrowing. And the interfund borrowing, again, can only come out of capital outlay and the like. Now, to answer John's question is, where is the money for the building? It's
one of the line items in capital outlay.
Right. I was just going to say it's in Fund 41 as where that money's parked right now.
Well, there's $18 million in capital outlay, and that includes $4.4 million for the one. There's $2 million for asbestos abatement. All those things. Those all come under capital outlay.
See,
But those are just designated for those things. They don't have to be spent for that. And that's where you got the permission to borrow from those.
that's exactly right. And you see that, we've traditionally for many years now, I don't even know how many years, we've basically swept everything into the capital outlay fund at the end of the year. In reality, we should probably rename that as as the true reserve fund or something like that, and just say it doesn't necessarily all have to go to capital outlay. It's just a fund of money to go to a variety of things, including capital outlay, and that's probably a bit more transparent. So anyway, that's the fund balances, and obviously, just to remind everybody, the building fund, the Measure P monies, that's restricted to our building. Our Measure P building, can't touch any of that.
Well,
Yeah.
Bob,
Yes, sir.
just as a point of clarification, with some of the Measure P funds, we also looked at those too, Dan, with respect to where we can leverage Smart 18.
Right.
And so we're able to do that in those cases with Measure P dollars. So it helps us further. Again, the issue is more about cash flow than it is necessarily about revenues. It's really about cash flow.
And regarding cash flow, the TRAN, when we apply for the TRAN, which again 6-8 weeks ago we were not even considering, 12 weeks ago, that money helps us with the cash flow. And that's something we're looking at. When you look at the agenda for next week's board meeting, oops, that's not the wrong agenda. Anyway, there's going to be an item on the agenda. There is an item on the agenda that will look into the possibility of securing a revolving credit line from a local bank and sending out an RFQ to request for quote to all of our local banks to see if it makes sense to establish a credit line in the amount of, say, $10 million that instead of drawing down on interfund borrowing, instead of relying on a TRAN, we could use to help balance things, again, from a cash flow point of view. A lot of other districts do that. A lot of public agencies do that. Now, we don't know if that makes any sense because of the short-term borrowing costs, but again, we're looking at ways to be... our problem is now every month, and Marie does it every day. Every day she's got to look and see if there's enough money in the bank to pay the bills. Right, Marie? And that's kind of where we are right now. We've got so much deferred income, it makes it very, very difficult to manage. So that's another thing we're just going to look at. May not get us anywhere, but we're going to look at it. If the board allows us to look at it. The board may say it's a terrible idea. No, thank you. Okay, what else on this document? I think I want to emphasize that roughly August 20th is our date. We are working on the budget right now. There's a lot of work to be done beyond just finding where the $10.5 million is going to come to balance the budget. And so Brac needs to make some decisions relatively quickly. I don't think another week is going to matter, but I think that certainly a week from today when we get together, we really got to make some decisions. If anybody wants to make some recommendations today about any changes in this, we certainly can continue the discussion.
But, sorry.
Go ahead, Danny.
No, sorry.
Well, I think something that's important, I'm speaking again to this point of the unclassified positions, I think it would be helpful, and maybe this, I don't know if it's premature or not, but for the vice presidents to get at that task and see what it looks like. Is the 50% really doable without, or is that a number that everyone is certain would not affect the operations of this college? Because I'm very concerned about that. And we went through registration and went through watching lines and people being recruited from other areas to do. I'm very leery about reducing workforce and trying to maintain efficiency in getting students into the classroom and serving them once they're there.
I don't think that... I think cutting one of those people is going to impact services to our students. I think we go into this knowing that we're going to be impacting services to students in the college. I don't know... I mean, and yes, we can get at it, and we should get at it, but I'm not sure that... Dwayne.
I think we definitely have to take a balanced approach to this, because I think where we have a certain number of hourlies, and we're also looking at having to balance these, where do we need to make new hires, where we've been living off of essentially hourlies, which have a lot of limitations to them with respect to hours in a year, certain skill sets, that if we made the right investments, and again, it is a balancing act, and I certainly get your point, and we're in fact already beginning to start looking at those issues in anticipation of how do we try to address, and I'm just as much interested in, well, could we go further than 50%? You know, it may be in one area or two of our different operations, we might be able to do that, but other areas might not be able to go that far because just the way things are set up. So I think we have to look at all that, and we certainly are doing that. But that's certainly a good point.
Danny?
Well, for me, it would be very hard to start making decisions about, and I know we're running up against the clock, and we got to start making them decisions. But I mean, we're looking at data from last year as far as the total cost of employees, and we know it's significantly less than that. I've seen a number, $8 million less. He said $5 million. That's a difference of $3 million.
Well,
that's 30% of the.
I can actually give you the number right now.
Okay.
Okay, but before I do that, as a tease, before I do that, I think we have to remember. I need to back up on one thing I said about maybe waiting another week. The Board of Trustees meeting is the 18th. They feel an urgent need to make some decisions and to move forward. It may be important today for us to at least say we can go with this, we don't want to go with that, before we leave today. I just want to do that. Now, to answer your question, SERP 1, when the dust settled, 92 people, about a $9.2 million savings in salary, health, welfare, and benefits.
9.2?
About 9.2. It's roughly $100,000 per employee. SERP 2, 7 people, $707,000 salary, health, welfare, and benefits. SERP 3, 14 people, $1.44 million salary, health, welfare, and benefits. Total annual savings, $11.35 million. Now remember that 9.2 went right to the bottom line to balance the budget in 11-12. Because those cuts, those 92 people came off the payroll on June 30th of 2011. We also added back 10 faculty positions and a few other hires, so we added back. So in essence, what we're talking about there is about another 2.3 million, 2.4 million of new savings, of which we got to pay their SERP. We got to budget the balance of SERP 2 and SERP 3 annuity expense in the upcoming budget. Then we're going to have to hire at least 5 full-time faculty, I'm guessing, educated guess, relative to our full-time faculty obligation number this coming year. And then, as you heard Dr. Rocha indicate, we're going to be building back positions, staff and managers and others in these other areas because of the critical needs the institution has, because over the last, what is that? That's 114, and this is about 121 SERP positions plus another 40, 50, whatever the number was of other people who retired or left for other reasons. So the point is that we've been through a cycle of just cutting, which is probably why the temporaries are up as high as they are, Dave, right? And now we got to add back in some critical positions. So the bottom line is that the SERP becomes more or less a wash. You know, the money has already been saved, and the money has already been used to balance the budget, and then we're using the last $2 million, if you will, to just basically deal with the build back of faculty that we had to build back because of the FFON, the additional faculty we're going to have to build back this year, and the additional positions that we have to add.
No, I understand how you know, they didn't put the money into account. That's what saved us from making other cuts. Okay, that I understand. But my point is, when you say the total cost of employees is $110 million, but then you outlined $11.35 million in cuts just from the SERP. That doesn't include other people that left or retired or whatever outside of the SERP. So that's 11.35 less than here. So now you're down to $99.8 million in total cost of employees, because you gotta look at what your base is as to what, so it reduces the whole base. So the savings from there, I realize they got spent. They're not sitting in a bank account. We can't use them for cash flow or anything. I understand that. But my point is that the number that you're talking about, when he says our budget is $105 million and our cost of employees is $110, and then you got another $10 million, that's $120. But this number is now down to about $99 million. Now there was $2 million, I realized, for the SERP, so you got to add back in $2 million. So now we're up to 101, and then another $1 million for 10 more faculty at 100,000, which, okay, so we've been using that number for everything else, so might as well use it for this. So you're at 102, but you're not at 110. That's $8 million difference.
Okay.
That's a big difference. Okay. So to talk about what these cuts here and saying that, then you're not including. We've already talked about the fact that we have more international students than we had last year, roughly 250. So that's 1.25 million. So there's another 1.25 million. That's 10% of the total cuts we're talking about here.
Okay, but
so I'm just saying,
I
it's
hear
so
you.
hard to say, yeah, we're going to cut this, and then we find out we got this money over here.
The reality is, if you go back to 2007, 2008, we were getting roughly $130 million in apportionment money. Next year, we'll be down to $105 million. So $25 million has been stripped out of our structural operating account over the last 4 or 5 years. So that's reality number one. Reality number two, everything has gone up in expense, health, welfare, all of that stuff goes up. I think this year, on average, we're actually going to be lucky, and our medical is going to go up about 5.5% across the board. And and that's going to be another $760,000, and I've got a worksheet I can give you guys on that. That all the other costs keep rising. Utility costs go up. Everything else keeps going.
Now, the utility costs, we were told the replacement of the lights was going to save $750,000 a year.
Well, it is, but it hasn't saved it yet. And
well, it's saving it now. I mean, for this year,
okay.
That was based compared to last year. I'm just saying.
Okay, but my point is that as these things over here adjust, other expenses go up. Okay, the other thing is that. The other thing we got to just bear in mind, the other big issue is the deferred revenue, is the cash flow. We have to be able to have as much money in the bank as possible just to pay the bills. Now, it's very true that we have more international students and we've got other things that are happening that's a good news story. But, you know, we could debate the numbers from now until, you know, doomsday, but we're still roughly in the same neighborhood.
No, we're not roughly in the same neighborhood. If it's true that we have roughly 250 more international students than last year, that's 1.25 million based on the numbers we've been using. If the dental fund doesn't need to be refunded or only partially refunded, that's another possible, let's say 1 million, not 1.3 or even $500,000. Okay, but I mean we're talking $500,000 here, okay. And then the total savings from this. I mean we're basing this on a total employee cost of $110 million, which we're not at $110 million. That's not what our total employee cost.
Here's what we're basing it on. We're basing it on the budget reduction math at the top. The trigger cut at $2.5 million, the base cut of $6.7 million we're going to get cut, and the repay the dental fund loan. Now, if we don't want to repay the dental, if we want to make a recommendation that out of the $1.4 million, we use that and basically take that down to nothing, then we can make that recommendation, and then we can go from there. I don't know if the board's going to buy that or not, but we can certainly make that recommendation.
Well, I'm not even saying break down to zero. What if we did 50% of that?
That's fine, too.
That's
I mean,
more than $500,000, though.
That's
so,
great.
So to go through this list of ways that we're saying we're willing to cut, and we find out, you know, with the out-of-state students, you got a $1.25 million. With the dental fund, let's say you took half of that, you're up to $2 million. And then the total cost, I mean, my problem is we're all basing this on a number here that just isn't accurate. I mean, it's not $110 million to pay our employees for everything this year. It isn't.
Okay.
And everybody admits that.
Okay, and I just went through a scenario as to where, you know, where the numbers are. And remember, we have to build back at 40 positions, give or take.
Yeah, I understand that, but I mean, you go back to 2007, 8.
But the point is, when you build back the positions, when you roll in the increased cost of health, welfare, and benefits, I mean, we could negotiate with the unions, or try to negotiate with the unions, employee contributions to benefits. I mean, you know, I'm looking at unions everywhere. I'm sorry, I'm not looking at you, Dave. I'm just saying, you know, with issue and everybody, you know, there are other ways that we can find this money, but we're not going to find the money between now and August 20th because the negotiations are going to take some time. Even what's in here has got to be negotiated. The furlough has got to be negotiated.
Well, I thought he had the ones he said they can do right now without any negotiating.
Which one?
I don't know. It says actions we are able to take now. So I took that.
Well, except if you look at 4, though, he says furlough must be negotiated with non-faculty unions. Parenthetically, you know, and we know that. And so, what if we're not successful in that negotiation? I mean, I don't know if we would or we wouldn't be, but but the point is, you know, and the board may not even buy the Tran scenario because it's. You know, it's not really.
But the cost is negligible, he said. If the cost is negligible, why would they say no to something like that?
Well, what I'm suggesting is that because it's not really solving. It's basically it's not balancing the shortfall. It's using borrowed money to balance the shortfall.
I know, but you can only get the Tran if you have guaranteed money coming in anyway.
No, I'm with you. I get it, and I think the board will approve it. But there will be some who will question it. Is my point. Simply that. All right, so I think I heard Dave. Yes.
The other question I have is, you know, it says the 50% workforce. Here it says about $7 million, yet you're only saving $3 million for a 50% reduction.
Right.
Shouldn't that be about 3.5 mil?
Yeah, except Dr. Rocha did. You know, he briefly commented. There's unemployment costs we're going to have to pay. Everybody who goes away, even on the furloughs, people can actually go and claim unemployment, and they will. Right. So, and we as an employer are going to have to pay that bill. So that will cost us money.
Can I ask another question? Just on your daily cash balance at the bottom here, you said you just found out we could get this $9.5 million payment today and another one next week. When did we find out about that?
Yesterday morning.
Okay, so all of this was built before we knew that. Is that correct?
All of what?
Well, all these suggested.
The only thing that, again, this is just, if you look at the bottom of this sheet, where it talks about 01 General Fund unrestricted, funding and balance, we are projecting at $23,352,576. Includes a receivable.
Which one are you looking at?
Sorry, this is the fund one, the June 31st.
Yeah, okay, sorry.
Okay, no, pardon me. If you go down to the bottom, it basically says we are predicting an ending balance of $23,352,576 with a receivable of $22,091,091. That $18 million is part of that receivable. Okay.
What $18 million? The reserve?
The $9 million.
Okay.
Amounts,
okay,
or it's
okay.
actually 9.5.
Yeah.
So that 19 million is part of that receivable.
Yeah.
But again, at $10 million a month, it's 2 months of paying.
Well, I realize, but I mean,
Yeah.
however you calculated this, if you had no idea you were going to get an extra $19 million cash flow, not extra money, but money in the bank.
No, we actually thought we were going to get $24 million. We've heard yesterday morning we're only going to get $22 million, which we are talking to the Chancellor's office about. The numbers change on an hourly basis, it seems.
Okay, I'm
The
sorry.
state's
I
trying to
thought I
sort it
heard
all
you
out.
say you
Yeah.
were surprised to find out, and these were
No,
earlier
what I was
payments.
surprised about, the last time we were told by the Chancellor's office, we weren't going to get this money until the end of July and into August. So
Okay,
they sent us a notification yesterday morning basically saying, hey, great news. And I think the great news was tied to John Chang's little thing about the state revenues for June were better than anybody anticipated. They were advised by the state treasurer's office that, hey, we got more money so we can accelerate the payment to the community college system. So then the Chancellor's office sends us a notification that says, hey, great news, we can send you your money a month earlier. And I will tell you, there are many, many districts who are in desperate straits. They don't have the interfund borrowing ability, and for them, that's life-saving. I mean, I understand, for example, Glendale is in horrific shape. I mean, really, really difficult shape.
But
And
either
they're just
way,
one of
however
many.
this was figured, if they didn't know they were going to have the 19 million this week and next week, if it happens, it seems to me that your cash flow system, whatever you calculated on cash flow, would be very different.
Our beginning cash flow calculation for July 1, for ending balance, obviously there's a cash budget and there's an accrual budget. The accrual is receivables and what's owed you.
Right.
Cash is what you have in the bank.
Right.
Our last projection of cash in the bank for July 1 was $1.5 million, which this is about right. I mean, again, and it's what's known as cash in the bank. If you look at, obviously we talked about this, but if you look at the June 27th, we got a call from LA County, all right? And in the morning they said to us, well, you're minus $840,000. But it's okay because you got $3 million in your unrestricted 03 account, and therefore we'll let that ride because we know you got cash and we won't worry about it. 3 hours, 4 hours later, they called back and they said, well, you know what? We have to do a report to the state that shows where all of our districts are. Do you really want the state to know and your creditors to know and everybody else to know that on this date that we had a report that you were minus $800,000? The answer is no.
Right.
So I immediately used the authority vested in us as an administration to go with the interfund borrowing, notify Dr. Rocha that we were going to do it, and we did it. And we did it from the GASB account.
Yeah.
So the big difference is cash and accrual, and everybody knows that who has a little bit of an accounting background. But you know what? You don't really know it until you face it. Then you really know it, right? and we're facing it right now.
So, Bob, really, what I'm trying to hear is, and I appreciate the discussion, Danny. I think that though we're recognizing that there are going to be some kind of cuts, and what I'm hearing, and I just want to make sure that's where we're at, is we're going to make a recommendation about what we feel comfortable cutting right now.
Right. I would say that based upon this proposal,
Right.
that Dr. Rocha has presented, what aspects of it can we recommend? What adjustments to it would we like to recommend so that we can advise the president and the board prior to the July 18th meeting that they're going to have next Wednesday,
Right.
what this group thinks, if this group is ready to venture an opinion.
Right. So we could do anything, right? We could also say, no, we're not recommending anything, right? We can
That's
make
correct.
a unilateral choice.
Right.
We could choose to pick and choose. We
Right.
could modify. Or we could also say, listen, we get that you want to cut 10.5, but we're only going to recommend 5.5, and that's what we feel comfortable recommending. That's something we could do, right?
Yeah, yes, the body can do anything that it feels appropriate to do.
Okay. So the only reason I'm asking is because as we're asking some of these clarifying questions, I think that if we're trying to get out of cutting, I feel like that's kind of where this discussion has gone. And I don't think that that's an option anymore, right? We're getting less money in apportionment. We're probably going to see the tax initiative not pass, right? So we're also trying to fend off damage for the spring, right?
That's exactly right.
Okay. So that being said, then, are we going to start taking motions right now? Are we going to start saying, like, let's discuss this and support it? Or do we want to make that, get some time to do some homework, and then next week start saying, this is what our working proposal is?
I think that any of those options are possible.
Mm-hmm.
Again, I would suggest to the group that it would be good to make some decisions today, if at all possible. If not, then, again, the board meets next Wednesday. I don't know if we want to try to get together before next Wednesday.
So, for example, it sounds like even Danny, right, like agreeing, like we make a recommendation that we take the Tran, right? That's something we could probably simply vote on now and say if it has negligible cost, right?
Which,
right
by the
now.
way, that's if our credit, the very best credit is 0.25 to 0.28% interest of 1%. It's very, very inexpensive. It's money, assuming our credit is that good. It can range higher than that depending on our credit rating, but right now it could be as low as 0.25 to 0.28%.
Right. So I'm wondering if there are some things where perhaps it sounds like we all want a little bit more information on the reduction of hourly and classified, because that sounds like that's going to take some more strategic suggestions. So if we put off voting on that until the next week, but maybe accepting some of, like, encouraging or saying we're going to unilaterally, we oppose that altogether, or we support that right now on some of these options.
First of all, I think that we can take any action that if somebody wants to move something, we can move forward. I'll just say that on the reduction of the force of the hourly and temporary unclassified, we can and will ask managers to give us some answers. That, tomorrow, they're gone tomorrow, Monday, Tuesday, they're going to spend the first 48 hours in mourning,
right, saying,
are you kidding? Are you crazy? What are you guys talking about? And then they'll begin to get to it sometime late next week.
Right.
The truth of the matter is we know it's going to hurt. So do we want it to hurt $3 million worth, $4 million worth, $2 million worth? Doesn't really matter. I mean, it matters, but I mean, whatever information we get from the chairs and the managers, 50% is devastating. Right? Mm-hmm. It's just, this district has been able to dodge the bazooka for several years, and now is our day of reckoning.
Right.
So do you want to start with any kind of something? I'm sorry, Gary. Yes, sir.
Before we start talking about accepting deductions, my question, and you alluded to it earlier, the repaying for dental funds. You mentioned that maybe you can go back and find out if it's necessary to do that, because if we don't have to do that, then that means we're only looking at a $9.2 million cut,
right,
and then hopefully then we can make a value decision on which ones we should cut.
I think that if this body today wanted to take an action to pay all or a percentage of the $1.3 million dental fee out of our dental fee reserve, I can then go back and check to make sure that that's possible. And if it is, great. If it isn't, then I will let you know that. So I think that if that's something you want to consider, then I think we can take that action today.
And just for the record, I do agree that maybe going beyond 50% at this moment could be a detrimental, because I know that a lot of us rely on hourly, whether it's facilities or even in our department. So I do want to make sure it's on the record that I support that.
I think I saw another hand. John?
Would there be a possibility of taking monies, for example, if we have a 1.3 savings or from a proposal, and subtract that possibly from item 1 or item 2 and say we would accept a 1.5 or 1.3 million reduction in hourly if we add the 1.3.
Exactly. That's what I was
reducing that potential impact. A couple of them, obviously number 2, we have no control over. To me, that's a given. And number 4 is going to be hard to project. Mm-hmm. So the only one I'm really concerned about today is number 1. And again, I don't know what the impact's going to be. I'm just concerned about it in the absence of any information.
Okay.
But
all right.
I think that for me, I would feel much more comfortable.
Mm-hmm. I think AC is ready for a motion.
Yeah, so I'd like to move to vote on this plan in 7 parts, which means that each will have a separate discussion, question, and item. As we do this, the reminder is we are always welcome to, for those of you who are down on your parliamentary procedure right now, I'm just giving you the heads up, that we're also always welcome to postpone a discussion point until next week. And I'm going to make that recommendation as I go through specifically on that one. Let me divide the question into 7 parts, which are, it's going to be based on this, so it'll keep it clear for you. So 1 is repaying the dental fund. 2 would be the reduction in the temporary hourly and temporary unclassified workers of 50%. 3 would be the state mandated workload. We still need to vote on it, whether or not it's state mandated or not. 4 would be the Gatsby. 5 is the 10-day furlough. 6 is to eliminate all non-contractual faculty release time. And then 7 is the TRAN. So that's the motion that we vote on this in 7 parts.
I just realized 7 should really be 6 on
Should
this
be
page.
I was going to say, am I missing something?
Something didn't work right there. I was like,
Oh, what happened to 6?
yeah. Okay. Yes, sir.
My support on this, or a member?
Okay, so Vice President Cable is a resource associate. So normally they do not get votes, but I think if this body wanted to give him a vote, we could do that. We can't do that? You don't want to
It's
vote?
fine.
You don't want to vote?
No, if it's a resource and it hasn't been officially gone through and approved,
Okay,
I'm-
all right,
I'm
that's
fine.
fine. And I also understand as the chair, I don't get a vote either from a, is that correct?
Right.
From a round,
You're
unless
only
I
allowed to vote in
break
a
a vote.
tie. Yeah.
Okay, so the power to the people, and we're not the people, Dwayne.
One of the
Amen.
things that I would like to have happen, given that we just clarified that Vice President Cable don't have a vote, is I would like to know what his opinions are on the
Absolutely.
specific ones. So
Yeah.
I don't want him to feel like
Well, in the
he can't make
discussion,
a-
he can talk. He
Absolutely.
I don't want him to
Can't
feel like
vote.
he can't make.
Everybody in
Am I
here,
allowed
his
to talk
opinion.
the nice thing about parliamentary procedure is anybody
If Faye
can
says
talk.
I can talk.
No, I just want to make sure he.
Yeah.
That's-
Anybody is
his-
allowed to talk, and anybody is allowed to ask questions at any time. And that's one of the big things to remember with Robert's rules is we cover one thing at a time.
Got it.
Everybody gets to ask questions until they feel thoroughly satisfied. But once a vote is called, we must take a vote. And
Got
so
it.
those are kind of the
I just want
basics.
to make sure that part was.
Sorry, that's my
That
debate
also
hat
applied
got
to you,
on.
Bob.
All right, so before we start this process, Dave's got a
I've just made the
question?
motion. We gotta,
Yeah,
second it.
on 4 and 5, I don't think this is for this committee here, because that's a union issue.
We
And
can talk
could
about that as a
recommend
discussion,
it,
but we need to get a
Yeah, let's
second
take-
of the
let's take it one
motion.
at a
So
time.
let's stay on, thank you.
Okay.
I'm not
All
trying
right,
to cut you off, but we gotta follow the procedure.
So what was the first motion, I'm sorry?
So the first motion is I move to vote on this plan in 7 parts.
Okay, so, and there's a second. So that was moved by AC, seconded by Alex. Is there discussion on that motion? All those in favor of that motion signify by saying aye.
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 All those opposed? Any abstentions? No abstention. Oh, you have one abstention?
Yes.
Just because you.
No.
Okay, we have one abstention. All right, so now the chair is ready for the next motion.
So I vote that we,
And we'll get to your question
right,
when
your
we
question,
get to it, Dave.
but
Yeah.
we've got to cover it in the order that it's presented. And so the first one is, should we vote, I move that we vote on accepting the proposal to repay the dental fund loan.
That we do repay it.
That we do repay it.
That we do repay it.
that we
That's
do-
because I'm going, so that way it's easier to vote in the affirmative than it is to vote in a negative. So we vote to,
To keep the
to keep-
1.3 million.
For the
Got it.
interest of discussion, I will second that motion.
thank you. Appreciate that.
All right, discussion.
So just so I'm clear, your motion is that you think we should repay the 1.3 million this year?
No, I believe that we should vote on repaying it. That's what I'm motioning for.
And discuss it.
So for example.
I'm glad you asked that
Because
question, Danny.
you don't want to vote in a negative, like this is how things that you don't want to get passed on most California ballot initiatives, is it's that double negative. So a yes means a no and a no means yes. This means a yes and a no means a no.
Yes.
Yes on this, this means we want to vote on whether we want to
No.
repay it.
No.
That means that you're voting to pay the 1.3 million.
Yes.
We're now voting on making a recommendation right now.
Danny?
Okay.
All right, so
So
is that-
we can have any discussion about that. That could include you making an amendment or modifying your position. You've been in all of these meetings, Danny. I'm sure you know all this
I want to
procedure
second.
stuff.
Oh, did anybody second her motion?
It's been
Alex
seconded.
did.
Seconded.
Alex, okay.
AS, AC.
Right.
Can I have a question? So dental fund, we had a long conversation about. My notes are kind of clear. We either have 1.3 million or is it 1.4 million? No, currently it's 1.4 million.
We annually, the premium is 1.3 million.
Okay, so
And last year, we self-funded out of that fund 1.3 million. So essentially, we had 2.8 million, give or take, in the balance last year. We used 1.3 of that money to pay the 12 premium.
okay, so the premiums is how much the dental costs for everybody who's on it.
That's correct.
Okay, so with 1.4, it's going to cost another 1.3 million this year, which is why they were repaying it.
It actually will cost another 1.3, and there might be a few percentage point increase on that.
Okay, that's all I wanted to know.
All right, further discussion. Are we ready to call the question? Okay, so all those in favor of keeping the dental fund loan, 1.3 million, as part of the budget reduction math, totaling 10.5 million, signify by saying aye. All those opposed signify by saying no.
Aye.
No.
Nay. Any abstentions?
I'll abstain from this one.
2 abstentions. Dave, do you have a question?
Well, no, I just wanted to make another recommendation on that item.
Okay, so I think the chair will entertain another motion. Go ahead, Dave, if you'd like to make a motion.
I'd like to say that we pay a portion of it, and if the initiative goes through, we could revisit it to pay the rest of it.
Very good. Would you like to put a number on the portion?
Need to.
Yeah, you need to.
40%?
So rather, what number would you like
What-
to put
what-
on that
yeah, what
portion?
number would you like to
Right.
put on it?
It's not the if,
I'm
it's
trying
the
to be
what.
very,
Right.
I'm trying to be very Brown Act Democratic about this, right?
It's what? It's like,
You want to divide it in half?
Let's say 40%.
So 40% of 1.3 million is going to be 1.3 times 4, right?
right,
So it's going to be 5. It's going to be like 600,000.
yeah,
It's going to be like $600,000.
something like that.
I
No,
think
it's
it's
not that.
5.2 million,
Yeah.
right? 5.2 million?
It's like almost.
Well, it's not. It's 1.3 million. So it's 520,000. Is that what it is?
Yeah.
3 times 12. Yeah, you're right. You're right. It's 5.2.
520, sorry.
So it's $520,000.
Great.
Right, $500,000.
So the motion is to pay 520. Well, the motion is to reduce the 10.5 by the difference, right? 1.3 minus 5.2. 1,300,000 minus 520,000. Who's got a calculator?
Can we just say 600,000
40%.
or something like that, keep these numbers simple?
Yeah, let's
Yeah,
just
I
say
think we can say
600,000.
it.
Keep
600,000.
the percentage, 40%.
$500,000. Say $500,000.
Say $500,000.
Okay.
Okay, so so are we agreed on $500,000?
That's great.
Okay, so we're going to repay the dental fund loan of
I second that
$500,000.
motion. I second it.
Second. Further discussion. All right, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed signify by saying nay.
No.
Okay, we're gonna have to do hands then. All those in favor, raise your hand. 1, 2, 2. All those 3. All those opposed, raise your hand. 1, 2. All those abstaining, raise your hand. 2. So the ayes have it. Correct? So that number is now going to be $500,000, reducing the amount of the problem by that amount. Okay. Chair will entertain the next motion.
So again, I'm going to move that we vote to accept the current plan, which is the reduction in hourly and temporary unclassified workers of 50%.
Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Alex seconds. Discussion. All right, I'll call the question. I'm sorry.
Go
Do you
for
want,
it,
do you
Alex.
want,
You
I was
go
gonna
for
say,
it. I've already talked about it.
just because so many people had questions on this specific item, I'd actually motion to lay this on the table till next week.
We'd like to table, I'll second the tabling of this item until next week when we have time to gather more information.
Discussion? I guess I'll say that I would prefer not to do that. I would prefer to have something stated, because I think that because it's such a significant amount of what our solution is, and because we know that the issue is going to be dramatic no matter what happens, I think I don't know we're going to get a whole lot of information between now and next Wednesday. We might. But the information is going to be the sky is falling and we can't do it. Right, Dan? That's what it's going to be. So, we could talk about another number, but that money has to come from somewhere. John?
Yeah, I kind of feel the same way, that the detail that it's going to involve to actually identify numbers of positions and the impact of those positions, it's going to take more than a week.
Yeah.
Because as you say, the real impact is going to come from the managers. And just to get that information, I think we need to move quicker than that. And so I don't think we should table this.
Okay. Further discussion?
I too have concerns about tabling it in that we have a number of key strategic hires that we need to make, and we need to kind of hire in the right spots as it kind of addresses some of the, the only way, we're going to have to pay for these things somehow, and there's got to, if we know where we're going short in hourlies, that we can hire in the right full-time way, it will help us, and we have to really view those decisions together, and so I would have really concerns of tabling that sort of issue as well, and it's just way too significant of amount of money that that's my input.
Okay, are we ready to call the question?
Which question are we calling?
The question would be, should we table the reduction in force of hourly and temporary unclassified workers of 50% until next week? That's the question, correct? That's the motion.
But was the original motion pulled?
No.
That was the original
We vote on
motion.
things one at a time, right? So we only ever vote on a small thing like this. We don't vote on whole things, right? So
Motion
That
to-
was the
to
motion.
vote to table it. That's all we've done.
That
And
was-
Motion
Oh,
goes.
okay, I thought you made the motion to accept the 50%.
that would happen only if we chose to table it. If not, now we're going to vote on it today. If we don't table this item.
So the motion is to table it, right?
That's correct. So all those in favor of tabling the item, raise your hand, please. 1, 2. All those opposed to tabling the motion, raise your hands. 1, 2, 2. All those abstaining, raise your hand. I get to vote.
We did that just for you.
Thank you. I appreciate that. The chair votes not to table the item. Okay, so the chair will accept the next motion.
So we already have a motion on the table, which was to accept.
Accept.
The motion, there was a motion to accept. Okay, so there's a motion on the table to accept, and who made that motion?
Pinella and Isaac.
And Pinella and Alex. Very good. All right, so discussion on the motion to accept the reduction in force of hourly and temporary unclassified workers of 50% at a total cost of $3 million. That is the motion on the table. Discussion.
I'm not sure how this fits, but I would like to, as part of that, recommend that the offset on the dental be moved to reduce the percentage on number 1.
Okay, that would be an amendment to the original motion. See, I'm getting good at this, aren't I? Yeah. That'd be an amendment to the original motion. Does the first and the second accept that amendment?
Yeah.
Okay. So there's a friendly amendment, and it has been accepted. All right. So now the motion is to reduce the $3 million by what is $800,000, I think, if I did that math right. So that would reduce $3 million down to $2.2 million.
0.2.
Okay. Further discussion on the motion? Gary, did I see your hand?
Oh, no,
You're good?
I'm fine.
We ready to vote? All those in favor of the motion, please raise your hand.
Can I ask a question?
Oh, of course you can.
Right now, we're voting on the amendment only, correct?
No, I think it was a friendly amendment and it was accepted by the first and second. So that the motion now is to reduction in force of hourly and temporary unclassified workers up to a maximum of $2.2 million, whatever that percentage turns out to be. That's the motion on the table.
But, let me ask us just for clarification. So that's on a contingency that everything else with the dental fund is
That's correct.
okay.
And that's something to maybe talk about after we vote on the motion. Are we ready to vote?
State the motion one more time. I'm sorry.
The motion is that we take the savings from the dental fund loan of $800,000. We reduce the hourly and temporarily unclassified worker dollar cut to $2.2 million.
Thanks.
You bet. All those in favor of the motion, raise your hand. 1. Okay. All those opposed to the motion, raise your hand. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. No abstentions over here this time, I can see.
Thanks a lot, guys.
Okay. Abstentions? Anybody abstaining? No. Okay, so that motion failed. So the chair will entertain another motion.
I move that we accept the state-mandated workload reduction.
Okay, so we're just going. So we're going to go.
That's number 2.
We're going to blow past number 1. We haven't. So we took no action on number 1, or did we take an action on number 1?
No, we didn't.
We did take an action. We don't support that plan.
No, but we didn't vote on just what it's stated here, 50%, $3 million.
Yeah, that got amended.
Yeah, that's what I said, but that's what I'm
So we
saying.
don't have to vote on that anymore because that's gone.
Well, does anybody want to vote on it?
If you'd like to make that motion to
Exactly,
go back
before
to
we
it.
go back.
We didn't vote on that, did we?
No.
We did.
Well,
No,
we
need to
did,
go back and
but
vote on
the
it
point
again.
is that
Okay.
the point is the committee chose. Okay, so this is what the committee chose to do, which is to take no action on this recommendation.
Exactly. That's exactly what we did.
So, okay, so the committee chose no action.
Yep.
Okay, moving on.
So what that means is we have chosen to not.
You're not
we
weighing
don't
in.
support that. We're
But that
not
was
weighing
based
in.
Well, no, it doesn't.
contingency
It doesn't.
of the
It doesn't say you're not supporting it.
Right.
It just says you've chosen not to take any action at all.
Exactly.
Okay.
So,
So
it
that's-
That's what I
basically,
want to make sure.
No, I thought we voted no on it.
no, you didn't vote no on it.
We didn't vote, exactly, we didn't vote no.
No, you voted on the 2.2, but again, the original.
I had a chance to vote on it as.
And
is.
so if you'd like to make a motion, you can make a motion.
Okay, so I'd like to make a motion to vote on, number 1, the reduction in force of hourly and temporarily unclassified workers at 50%.
Right, that's correct.
I don't know, put it in the affirmative, however you need
No, you
to
just
do it.
did.
Okay,
You just did.
like that.
By
Yes,
reading
I'd
it.
like to vote on that.
Okay, very good. So Danny is making the motion to approve the reduction in force of hourly and temporarily unclassified workers 50%, totaling $3 million. Does anybody want to second that? Dave Kraus wants to second that.
Which was the original motion
Exactly.
before all the
That's my-
amendments.
But that's,
exactly.
okay.
But that's
That
what we're
was
coming
my
back to.
point.
That's what we're coming
We had
back
that
to.
discussion.
This
Okay,
is the reason.
so there's a motion on the table to approve the recommendation as stated. It's been seconded. Discussion on that motion. Hearing no discussion, I will call the question. All those in favor, raise your hand. 1. All those opposed, raise your hand. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
Five.
Abstentions. Okay.
Sorry.
So what that's saying, this group is saying that they do not want to help solve the problem with this reduction.
Right,
That this
that's
$3
what I'm
million
saying.
is not going to be,
Yes, we do not support that.
you do not support that.
Specific action item.
Okay.
Can I make a statement? Obviously, with my friendly amendment, I'm only concerned, I'm not saying in my vote that we don't consider this as a possibility, but I'm not comfortable with 50%. So
Would you like to make another motion?
I don't know what it would be. Because I lost the last one, it certainly wouldn't be a number. But
Well, it has to be a
It has
number.
to be a number. Yeah.
Does anybody want to make a motion as to, because I'll tell you what's going to happen. is if we just say no,
Yes.
then the board will do what the board wants to do.
The
Exactly.
board's going to do what the board wants to do anyway, and I'm not going to give them my blessing until I know the numbers better.
Okay, and so if that's the position that this body wants to take today, then that's fine. But I just want you to know that, you know, that you have taken a position of not agreeing with this recommendation, and you're not countering it with anything.
Let me also be clear that we can vote on this whole thing, and if we want to next week, bring it up as another discussion item and re-vote on it. So we are making a motion based on the recommendations of the people who've been at the table saying, hey, we need to take action. And we've chosen to not take action, but next week we could all, like I said before, which is we can all go do some research before the board meeting and make our,
The board meeting
after
is,
the
the board meeting is on the 18th. This group meets on the 19th.
The 19th, right. So we could move to meet earlier next week
Right.
and re-vote on this. Yeah.
Okay, but again, I'm not sure what's going to change between now and
Right.
meeting
Yeah,
earlier
I
next
don't-
week, Monday or
That's
Tuesday.
what we're saying. So the choice is we either make an action or our inaction says, no, we don't support this specific cut, right? So as you heard Danny say, I'm not supporting this specific cut as part of this plan. And that's what we just essentially said.
Right.
Exactly.
So,
The purpose of my friendly amendment was to reduce the impact. That's my only concern, that 50% is significant.
all right, so the point is, you could move 2 million. You could move 1.5 million. You could move any number.
The problem is once we start reducing the numbers in one section, it adds to the
Yeah,
numbers
then
in the
That
other
is
section.
exactly correct, Mr.
And that was
Kraus.
the purpose of the
That was my point.
800,000, because you can identify it. At least that made me feel a little better. But it didn't make others feel better. So that's fine, too.
Watch.
Yeah, I mean, like we said, it's getting cut. We are just now saying, what do we feel comfortable giving our blessing to? What do we feel comfortable saying, this is what we recommend to the board?
Precise.
Right? And so, like you said, it's a good idea to say, if we're going to have to cut, how do we make ourselves feel better during the process? But we're going to have to make some recommendations about how we do that. And that's, at least we can use this as a starting point of discussion. Right?
Now, exactly. So we can leave it as is for now. We can continue down our list, and if we want to come back and revisit it before we're done today, we can do that, I assume, right?
Exactly.
So Penella is guiding us through this, so why don't you take us to the next step?
So I'm just going to, I'm going to just move us to the next moment. We're still on the state mandated workload. Am I right, guys? Okay. So I move that we vote to take the state mandated workload reduction.
Do I have a second?
I second.
Second, Gary. So Penella the first and Gary second. Discussion.
Out of curiosity, since you wear many hats now at this point, in terms of enrollment management, haven't we already basically begun this in terms of the fall semester, and is it not already being looked at to the spring? So it's
Yes,
whether
we have. Yeah.
for example, I like it or not, it's for the fall semester, it's already been done.
For the summer.
And for the
and
summer, it's also
And the
been
fall, it's already been done. Now, again, if the initiative passes, we can load back in a lot of this in the spring, and even load some of it back in the summer of 13. Yeah, and that obviously is our plan to do so.
You got seconded.
Yeah, you got second.
Okay, so it was Penella and seconded by Gary. Further discussion? Dave?
I mean, this is kind of mandated, so it's, no matter what we say right now, it's going to take place, correct?
Well, it hasn't actually passed, has it?
The state budget?
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
State budget was passed. That's how the legislators made sure they got paid. That's why they had that added pressure of getting it done. That's why we actually had a budget approved. Okay, so let me call the question. All those in favor of accepting state-mandated workload reduction as written, raise your hand, please. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3, 4. 4 aye. All those opposed, raise your hand. 1, 2. Abstentions?
Abstaining.
1 abstention.
And just for the record, my my nay is just understanding that ultimately it is a given fact that it's happening anyway. It is just more of a kind of don't like it kind of thing. But
Philosophical statement,
but
absolutely.
understanding that it is still going to happen.
I know, yeah, we totally get that. All right, Chair will accept the next motion.
The next motion is that we vote to accept the GASB OEB one-year deferral of payment.
I will second.
Okay, so we have, the motion is to accept the GASB OPEB one-year deferral of payment. Motion and seconded. Discussion?
My original statement earlier was, I was worried this might blow back later on, but I mean, it seems like it's going to be fine as long as, I mean, I have more hope on the Brown initiative than I think other people in this room do. And, but I still think whenever you go into retirement stuff, it does weird out the populace.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like it does, even if you're like, well, we know they're fine, we're gonna be able to pay things.
Yeah.
It just does. That was my
And those of us with more gray hair than others really get weirded out, so.
I was thinking, I was like, uh-oh.
Okay, so, thank you, Kevin. All right, so, ready to call the question on this one? Okay, all those in favor signify by, raise your hand, please. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. All those opposed, raise your hand. All those abstaining, raise your hand. 1 abstention. Okay. Next.
I make a motion that we accept the 10-day furlough for all non-faculty.
Do we have a second?
I will second.
Discussion. Dave?
Yeah, I'll make my deals now that this is a union issue.
And it is, and I would just draw the people's attention or the members' attention to the language that exists, which is scheduled for after January 1, 2013, no furlough if November ballot initiative passes. Furlough must be negotiated with non-faculty unions. Okay? No classes in winter session 2013. Administrative staff take 1 week furlough at start of winter and 1 week furlough at spring break. Pay reduction in 6 installments January through June. So the point is, this recognizes the furlough is a negotiable item. So this body can take action, and it really doesn't mean anything. The Board of Trustees can take action, and it really doesn't mean anything until it's negotiated.
Right, but it's also stating that you want to get rid of the winter session. That's what we're recommending.
Well, and here's the reality of that. At the moment, as Dr. Rocha mentioned, as part of our 4,777 section plan, we have only 50 sections scheduled this winter anyway, roughly 50. And those are only for programs that require for certification and accreditation and those types of things. They have to continue in one way or another. Okay, any further discussion? All right, so let's call the question. The motion on the floor is to accept the 10-day furlough for all non-faculty. All those in favor, raise your hand. 1. All those opposed, raise your hand. 1, 2, 3. Abstentions. 1, 2, 3. So 1 in favor, 3 noes, 3 abstentions. Okay.
Next option.
Right. I'm just making a note here. Sorry. Okay. Next option. So what
I vote, or I motion that we eliminate all non-contractual faculty release time.
Second.
Thank you.
Okay. So Piniella and Kevin, discussion. All right, let's call the question. All those in favor of eliminating all non-contractual faculty release time, raise your hands. Seeing none, 0. All those opposed to eliminating all non-contractual faculty release time, raise your hands. 1. Is that 1? Just 1. All those abstaining from this. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Did I get that right? So 0 yes, 1 no, 6 abstentions.
I'd like to add note to that, which is I'm happy to discuss faculty, non-contractual faculty release time, pending more information and discussion of what we're doing. I felt uncomfortable voting on it as a whole without more time, and I'm recognizing that we needed to take action today, but I would like us to revisit that at some point in the future.
Okay. And I know that there's an academic senate discussion happening on that. It's ongoing, but there's going to be a real dot the I, cross the T discussion of that early next week, and they will be reporting back to Dr. Bell on that topic. I also want to just point out that the $500,000 in no way represents the total release time. In no way represents that. It's a percentage, and it's probably well below 50%. Yes, Dustin.
Good afternoon, everybody. Just to confirm that we are taking a look at that matter, and we hope to have a recommendation within the next 1 to 2 weeks.
Okay, thank you. The chair will entertain the next motion.
And it's the last one.
Yay.
Aren't you excited? All right. So now the last motion is that I vote that we accept the TRAN.
Second.
Okay, so that was Pinella and Alex was the second. The motion is that we accept the taxpayer revenue anticipation note, otherwise known as the TRAN recommendation. Discussion.
It's a 1% interest rate?
It's anywhere from 0.25 to 0.28 if, in fact, we are the gold standard of credit rating, and it's something higher than that depending on where we end up on a credit rating. But the bottom line is that we have very good credit, so I suspect that we will get very, very favorable terms.
Yeah, that's my only moment, is I know that this can turn into like a high-priced payday loan, so I think that as long as it's I'm going to say this in good faith upon the board. As long as we are in good standing, I'm happy to vote for this. But if our credit rating is, if the percentage rate is going to be unmanageable, I would like us to keep that in mind.
Very good. And there will be a full presentation of this at the board meeting next Wednesday night. We have RBC Capital, which is the firm that basically puts these trans together with the pools of trans together with LA County Office of Education and, the Community College League of California. They will be here making a full presentation to our board next week.
Considering what Pinella just said, and I ask you, Pinella, would you want to amend the motion so that there's a threshold on the percentage?
You know,
or do you
I don't
want to keep
know.
it?
I haven't done the research on it to know it verbatim, so I feel uncomfortable putting any percentage number
And the other
or
thing
a credit score on it for us.
Right.
Okay.
The other thing to bear in
Yeah,
mind.
I
thought about that, and I'm not.
I was asking if you were sure, because
Yeah, no,
I
I'm
don't
not.
feel very comfortable. I just want to see your standing.
The other
I would
thing,
be making things up at that point.
I'm sorry. The other thing to bear in mind is that it's a short-term loan. It has, and this hasn't been stated. It has to be paid back within 12 months.
Right. It does say it must be repaid within 1 year.
Yeah, exactly. So it's got to be paid back. So the interest, no matter what, it's going to be
accumulate
very
in 12
reasonable.
So I'm
Yeah.
okay with that.
Okay. All right. So can we call the question on that? All those in favor of the TRAN, please raise your hand. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. All those opposed? All those abstaining? Okay. So, to recap, the body agreed to reduce the dental fund loan obligation payback to $500,000. The body took no action on the item number 1, reduction in work in force of hourly and temporarily unclassified.
No, we said no to that.
Did we say no?
We then made another, I made another motion and we voted no on that.
Yeah,
The ultimate vote was
Okay, I'm sorry. So the ultimate vote was no, and they took, and so you just said no, and that's right, and then you decided not to put anything else on the table.
No. Yep.
Okay, so the answer is no, nothing, and no alternative. The body agreed to the state mandated workload reduction. The body agreed to the GASB move. The body did not agree to the 10-day furlough. The body basically abstained. There were 0 yes, 1 no, and 6 abstentions. So I guess the no carries the day?
Yeah.
So the body said no to that. And then the TRAN they said yes to. Now, does anybody want to reconsider item number 1 at this point? Or
You know,
did anybody want to make a further motion on item number 1 at this point?
In an effort because I heard what Dwayne Cable was saying regarding some critical positions that are pivotal on whether or not some of this money is available. And so I'm going to move that we reduce the hourly unclassified by 1.5 million.
Okay, there's a motion on the floor to reduce the hourly unclassified 1.5 million. Do I have a second?
I'll second it.
Okay, the second by Piniella. Discussion. I guess I will just add that I think that if we have no voice at all on this, then they will assume that we have no voice at all on this and take whatever action that they might want to take.
But we already do have a voice saying we're opposed to it.
That's what I'm saying. But yes, we're opposed. Okay, so that's your voice. You're opposed to it. All right. All right. So we have a motion and a second. Kevin, do you have something else you want to say?
The reason is students are part of these hourlies. Just in general, the students are part of this 50%.
That is absolutely correct, sir. Yep, that's right. Okay, so let us take a vote on the motion. The motion is to reduce up to a maximum of $1.5 million. All those in favor, raise your hand. 1. All those opposed? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Abstentions? 1 abstention. Okay, I think we've beaten this horse as much as she's going to be beat today. No, we can do a little bit more.
Dwayne wants to keep beating. I think we can fully do this again.
Okay. All right, is there anything more to come before this body? We will be meeting again. I'm sorry, Dave. Let me just get this out. We will be meeting again next Wednesday, same place, 2 p.m. Next Thursday, thank you. Same place, 2 o'clock. Dave and then Alex.
Yeah, I'm a little disappointed that this came to us, today, and we have to vote on it. I mean,
I voted no.
Evidently, this thing was not thought up. Was not made up today. They could have emailed it to us, and then we could have had our questions, and then we could have had some answers for us when we got here.
Okay. Duly noted. Thank you. Alex.
Ultimately, the budget situation, I think we all realize, is fairly fluid as it's going forward. And whatever the board discusses and moves on Wednesday night, I'm guessing will not be the final say because there's still a bit more time to put things together. Correct?
I can't promise that. There's a huge amount of behind-the-scenes work that has to go into building this budget. Huge amount. And what I can fairly say that as our budget situation, should our budget situation improve once the budget is in place, then coming back to Brac would be discussion about where to build back. For example, I know we took no action on item number 1, but if the board decides, unfortunately, we're going to have to go with the $3 million, and then the budget situation improves, this body can recommend that as one of the immediate build-backs, we put money back into that. Or this body could recommend that we invest more money into classes. Or this body could recommend anything as things improve.
Yeah, I just wanted to make clear the fact that considering that we got this today, and I think for most of my votes, I think that's what it was weighted with, that a lot of decisions, at least because it was made today and there wasn't enough at least helpful information at this moment. I think that's why, especially with the reduction in force of hourly and temporary unclassified workers, to at least I can say, speaking for myself, hearing what other divisions would say, even if they said the sky is falling, but you know what, we'll deal if we have to, or we can make this work, would have affected at least my vote in a different way. So I just want to make that clear going forward, because I could see the board already saying, why did they vote no? What are we going to do? Did they put anything else out and then just go with it anyway?
Yeah. I think that it's very, very fair to say that when this body meets again a week from today, if it wants to reconsider any of the things that it talked about today, regardless of what the Board of Trustees did or didn't do, it certainly can do that. And then it can move additional recommendations forward.
So on that note, for future agenda items, I think I would like us to revisit conversations around hourly workers so that we could come up with our own recommendation for future cuts or not cuts. I would like us to at least have a conversation around that. The release time, I would like us to revisit. Probably based on the discussions we just had, having another discussion around capital outlay. It sounds like that's something Danny's really would like to have a little bit more clarity on, right? That from the earlier part in the discussion, I feel like those should be heard or at least articulated, so we can make some maybe more forward thinking as opposed to being reactive like we were today.
Yeah, what I can do is I can ask Marie to basically do an update on the Fund 41, how it's spread. You know, we had a report of that some months back. We can go ahead and update that now.
All right. You know, I would also like, and I thought I asked for it before, and maybe she gave it to me, but there'd be more complete now anyway by the end of the year. But the actual numbers on the international students that we've had over the last, 9, 10, 10, 11, 11, 12.
I think that's important too, not to follow, just that with this additional source of revenue, I feel, again, and maybe this is something for the next time around, which is that future source of funding. I felt as though the president requested that we look at additional sources, things outside of our international students. And I would like us to have a more meaningful discussion about what that might mean on our behalf, like what are we recommending. My concern is what we're essentially doing is asking individual instructors, and while it's wonderful that we got a couple of big grants in specific departments in the last year, that we're essentially asking faculty members to now be grant writers, faculty members, shared governance, and how many other positions. So I have a concern that we maybe need to make some recommendations about what we can do as a committee that might help secure that funding. Maybe we becoming grant writers or...
Yeah, and I guess I will just share that a big part of the grant writing activity is out of the grants office, and we often use consultants to help us write grants as well. So some faculty get engaged in actually the hard writing, but for the most part it's done by other folks.
Right, but I think as the budget committee that if we're asked to look at not just F1 visas, we should be looking at all the things that were requested of us, and so that's one thing that we haven't.
So let me say that on the international student thing, the request is 9, 10, 10, 11, 11, 12.
Not just international, out of state.
Yeah, the out of state.
Break down the both.
Yeah,
okay. How many are international, how many are out of state, but
it's basically the non-resident tuition.
Yes.
So we'll look at that, but I have to be very honest with you, because of everything that's going on in fiscal right now, to build the 13-14 budget and get that umpteen-page book done, it might be after. It might not be immediate. I think we can do the capital outlay thing relatively quickly.
Right.
But
again, for me, this is just the moment of being, again, more proactive than reactive, because I feel like when we have things presented to us, we operate from a place of deficit and panic, and things get heated around silly moments where it's like, hey, we've already had this discussion and you're just panicking. Don't panic. So I would rather us try to at least be a little preventative in some way.
Okay, very good.
Well, and on those lines, I mean, this is the second year in a row. It isn't the actual budget, but last year it was Friday, and he had to have the budget done that night when we were presented with it. And then, I don't even remember. I don't even think we voted, but it was like, there's the discussion. Boom, it's done. It's going to the board. And here today, again, it's first time we're seeing it, and then we're voting on it. We don't do that in Academic Senate. We don't do that in most other committees.
Yeah, let me comment in this regard. I was a member of Brac, and then because of circumstances, I'm now chairing Brac. But for weeks and months, we had document after document, piece of paper after piece of paper come to us. No one was of a mood to actually make the tough decisions. So we put it off, until a couple of Sundays ago when I spent a whole day putting what came to $16.6 million of cuts together, not including any of the negotiated items. So I came in, showed it to the president, and he said, we better look at some other options. Okay, now, had we been doing our job months ago, we would have been actually getting into not looking at page after page after document, but actually talking about the kinds of things that Piniella was talking about. Alex, you say something.
Yeah, I was going to say, I think it's more than fair to come here and, like I said earlier, say, you know, we got this today. That definitely influenced a lot of this vote and a lot of the way we feel about it. But just speaking, having sat on this committee along with you, Danny, just last year, none of us took it upon ourselves to actually put together any suggestion. You did in terms of funds and transfers and capital outlay, yeah, and I'll give you credit for that. But more than that, we didn't really put anything together in terms of actual hard numbers. And as members of the committee, each one of us could have motioned to take those stances. You could have done that last year. I could have done it last year with you. So many things. I think Penella's point is well taken, that moving forward, as members of this committee, we need to be more proactive in how we set this budget. That way, perhaps, the administration won't feel the need to try to push us in that direction.
But it is very hard when we're not the ones with the information.
Well, and to be honest with Danny, you don't trust the information that we give you. And I mean you personally, but we spend a lot of time, the information that we give is questioned.
I try to verify it, yeah. Well, why would anybody, would you take any, well, anyway, I don't distrust you, but I don't
none of this is
distrust
personal.
Dwayne.
I understand
I
that.
trust the administration.
I get it.
I always just like to verify. That's
I understand. Dwayne.
Well, one of the things I had suggested months ago
Right. Yeah.
was to actually to go through a process where we ask the college community for ideas for cost savings. And in fact, we had developed within IT a web-based survey, pretty much waiting on Rick to take a look at that and then go through a marketing process. And one of the things I would encourage this group is to, thinking proactively, is to, I don't think our cuts are over. I think we're going to have to start doing it again for next year, and that maybe we start looking at ideas and entertaining input from the college community about what some of these cost-saving measures should be. Like, for instance, why don't we all go to one payday a year, or a month, excuse me, a year? That would be interesting. In fact, why don't we start using accounts receivables? Maybe we'll issue accounts receivables to all of the employees that will pay you next month. Never mind. Right. But no, I know those kinds of things are contractual kinds of issues, but we have to look at how can we streamline our process in such a way that we don't have to spend so much time, for instance, just in producing payroll. We have one payday a month, and then we all do that. Those are the kinds of ideas that we really need to start looking at and figuring out how can we save some money.
I know we're getting at the late hour and everybody has places to go. I have yet another meeting to go to.
Congratulations.
I know. I've only been here since 8:30. It's cool.
Yeah,
so one of the things I might ask is if that's ready to go, could we get maybe a final view of it, look at it, put it on the agenda next week and send it out so we can inform not maybe this budget clearly, but at least next year's budget.
I think it's a great idea.
And I was actually going to say, for probably not for this year's budget development, but